It is February 9th, 2023. James Jones, John Lindemann, Greg Leahy, Guillaume Veillette. You guys need to... Come on, we're going quick. I said we're going quick.
Hey. What's up?
So I'm John Lindemann.
Greg. Yes, John Lindemann.
I'm Greg Leahy.
Great. And then I guess I'm sorry, Greg. That leaves you with the role of John today. So
Wait,
you're
no.
just
No, Guillaume's got that. I guess I'm you.
Oh shit!
Oh man!
All right, well you're the host now. Have fun.
Yep.
No one wants to be Guillaume. That's great.
Well, I guess I thought.
I mean, James is Guillaume by default.
I claimed myself. I didn't realize my mistake.
Guillaume by default by James Jones.
I don't mind being Guillaume, but I'm not going to do a fake accent because I'm just going to offend everyone. So.
That's the thing. It's easy to imitate Guillaume. Just throw out random French words like "fantastique," you know. Everybody will be like, "Wow,
yes,
that's Guillaume." Just random exclamations of French exclamations.
You should just do that.
Here are my impressions of the new Mario. Bonjour.
All right.
See?
All
Perfect. Right. Parfait. My bad.
Guillaume brought to you by the writers of Bravely Second. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Basically.
God.
Now as long as I get to throw cats at enemies.
Oh, it's a good class.
I mean, no one's saying you... I mean, they probably are people saying you can't do that, but they're not here. They're not listening to the show because if you are listening to the show, you're a real soldier, or we fixed the issue. I just want to start the show off real quick with, we've been dealing with an issue related to Nintendo World Report updating its certs. This is something you have to do on a website every year. It's just background noise. John and I have both gone through it, and 80% of the time it's fine and nothing happens. But you live in absolute abject fear of it because when it goes wrong, there's no rolling back because your old cert's dead and you've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, it went wrong this time. And how that's manifesting is a number of podcast players are unable to process the RFN feed, which means people aren't getting updated that the podcast has a new episode, or they can't download it, or some other dumb bullshit happens. And being a technologist myself, I made the executive decision to, well, maybe if I modernize the RSS feed, which hasn't been modernized in 15 years, and bring it up to modern standards, so when we validate it doesn't have a million alerts about how things are out of date, maybe that'll fix the problem. And then I fucked that up too. So I may have made things an even bigger mess. I reverted, but nobody can pick up that I reverted the change because, again, back to the first problem, nobody can access the feed correctly. It's great. Some podcast players don't care that the cert's weird, and they're just like, yeah, whatever, give me your virus-infected files. I love it. It tastes great. Delicious. Where other podcast players are just like, no, I'm not going anywhere near that. Google right now, Google Play Podcast, is particularly in a curious state where it thinks there's only 10 episodes, but won't let you play any of them unless you go to the website, and then it lets you play those 10 episodes and nothing else. It's amazing. I am enraptured by this. It definitely hasn't consumed 40 to 50 hours of my life over the last week. And I'm definitely not upset. I definitely didn't need to have a conversation with my significant other about how upset I was just so I didn't get more upset. That definitely isn't a thing that happened. We're trying. It's hard. Certs suck. And I apologize for the inconvenience. You can go to NWR website and download episodes. If you are listening to this episode and we haven't fixed the problem, that means you already did that. So tell your friends, I guess. Unfortunately, there's not an easy way for us to communicate this. There's the at RFN podcast, all one word. That's the Twitter account. And then John created an account on Mastodon where no one is. There's the Facebook page we don't use anymore because Facebook. Mm-hmm. And it's 2023. And there's the NWR Discord where you've seen me despair like I'm a character in one of Shakespeare's tragedies. It's just like, I can't fix it. Alas. I'm out there holding the skull of my podcast feed, speaking to it. It's great. I'm having a good time. But if you've been dealing with this, I apologize. This is not what we want. We want this to be seamless. We want you to be able to download the episode. I don't say anything about you wanting to be able to enjoy the episode because I'm not making wishes to a genie here. I know what RFN is, but I want you to at least consume the episode. if we leave you with a feeling, I don't care what that feeling is, but if it's revulsion or frustration, please don't tweet at me on my birthday. Thanks. Let's move on. So, hey guys, what are we going to talk about this week? Besides technology being evil.
I don't know.
No.
Pretty quiet week.
Yeah, pretty quiet. Oh, okay. I'm getting an alert that there may have been a Nintendo Direct. Because I wasn't notified 6 days ahead of time, as is my requirements, I refused to watch this Direct.
Yeah, why don't you look it up and see if there's an article about it?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go look it up and see if there's a website that covers Nintendo news called NintendoWorldReport.com. That's a pretty cool website. Somebody should make that website if it doesn't already. Oh my God, it already exists. I'm not going to use the NWR article. But it does exist. I'm going to use this one instead. From Game Industry. So, yeah, there was a Direct. That was on Wednesday. We're recording on this on Thursday. I didn't give you the date. It's 2/9/2023. I did give you the date. I didn't give you the episode. It's 809. And we have a Direct to talk about. So we're going to talk about the Direct. This is actually a relatively big Nintendo Direct compared to some of the other ones, and compared to the depth of the news. We got updates on a lot of the things you would expect to, with one omission. This was billed as a Direct that would primarily focus on the things releasing in the first half of 2023. I will note that in the NWR Discord, we always get a surge of people when there is a Direct. And one of the first things posted was they didn't show any 2024 games. When it was pointed out that they said this was going to focus on the first half of 2023, the response I got was, yeah, but they always lie. So that's what the Nintendo Directs are at this point. So that's going to conclude our coverage of the Nintendo Direct for this week. No, I guess we actually have to talk about the contents in it. And, John, since you found this good rundown.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you, do we want to try to go in relative order that things were announced, or do we just kind of want to scattershot it based on what we care about?
We can go in order.
Okay.
Especially since what I care about corresponds with, the order that we're going to go.
This was a Direct. I don't know. This article is not in order. This Direct, Guillaume was eaten. So I'm going to give a good example. Yes.
Where does that expression come from? Because I really hate it.
Oh, good.
I'm never going to say that. Actually, I was going to say it to say then that I never want to say it again. But
I'm going to use it so much now. It's like this is now I'm eating because now I know.
We eating good here.
Memes are memes is where we're at.
So Pikmin 4.
Yeah, so Pikmin, a game to be, or a franchise to be played while walking your dog, now gives you the option to walk a dog while playing Pikmin without leaving your couch. Because all you Pikmin Bloom enthusiasts, there's a new Pikmin game coming.
All one of you.
Right.
No, there's two. Xander apparently plays Pikmin Bloom as well.
He does. Yeah, and I've got some people in my neighborhood. Sometimes their Pikmin are attacking Mushroom, and there might even be a way for me to almost interact with them by waving at them or something. I'm not sure. It's not really explained.
Yeah, I don't know. You know how, my experiences with 3DS and Street Pass, it just gets kind of weird, you know?
This is going to be Guillaume. Guillaume's not going to go, stalk down children, though. So that's the difference between the two of you.
For the record.
You don't know.
For the record.
Enough about Pikmin Bloom.
I trust you to not do that.
Oh, man. But why do you trust me to do it?
Because you
whatever.
did it!
I don't want it. I didn't do it!
It's
That wasn't a
tape.
child!
That we know of!
Let's go to the audio evidence.
I still carry... I'm still that guy that carries his 3DS with him around in his bag just to see what Street Passes I get.
Sure.
Me too.
When I first came out here, I used to get quite a few walking around downtown, just being out and about. Maybe some people at work have them, whatever. Now I get one in a blue moon, and it is from the same person each time, which makes me wonder who that kind soul is.
Following you.
I don't know who that person is. I think they call themselves GP, and I don't know who that is. There's no initials that I know.
Have you written Street Pass messages to them explicitly yet?
I haven't started doing that. But what am I going to say? What am I going to say?
Who are you?
Tell me about yourself.
Where do you live?
Yeah, there's not enough characters in the Street Pass message to say like even like missed connections or anything.
Like, put the name of the
can't even
street
joke
and then
around
like
with it.
Starbucks and then like what time and
No, you just start with,
Okay,
"Hi,
well-
I'm John." Then the next
well-
one, it's like, "How are part 1 of 2?" And then the next
Oh,
time,
God.
it's just you, question mark.
This is like spread out over like an 8-month period. Well, the first thing, it's like, it's like, the first thing I would want to ask, but I can't ask is, are you a child? Because if you're a child, I don't want that to sound creepy, but I'm doing that for forget it.
No, John, tell me why would we be worried about it being a child? I'm just curious.
I don't know. That's creepy. I don't want to like interact with some kid or whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying if I'm looking for contact. You know what I'm saying?
oh no, you're not looking for any contact.
Whatever. You guys are like, meet that person at Starbucks.
I didn't say at all. I just was like, you should write the messages. Like, "Hi, how are you?" It'll make them
just
feel
saying.
personal.
I'm just saying, if I'm going to be reaching out, I want it to be appropriate contact, not inappropriate. I had to stalk the person a little bit, just a bit.
I had to stalk the person
just a little bit.
just a little bit.
To confirm that they were on the up and up. They were.
I had to stalk this person to make
as
sure
far
that
as I can tell.
I
they were an
had
adult.
to stalk this person to make sure that I wasn't stalking a child.
So Pikmin 4.
Yes.
It's weird because they started with a certain motif, like they were like red Pikmin, and they show like one red Pikmin, and then they show the player character just using Pikmin, and then like ice Pikmin, and okay, and then I was expecting them at some point to trot out all the Pikmin that we know, blue, yellow, the purple ones, etc., and maybe another new one, but no, like that's all that they had to go with. Red and ice.
Cost-cutting measures.
But we do see yellow Pikmin. We do see, so it's not like they're not in the game. But yeah, I thought it was a little bit weird, as if like they cut a longer trailer at some point, and then they were like, well, let's calm down a little bit.
Sometimes after the direct, there is like a longer version as its own video on certain of Nintendo's YouTube channels anyway. But I think with a piece of maybe like promotional art on the eShop, like you could see they've actually got the purple Pikmin and the white Pikmin in the art, who were in 2 but not 3. They were kind of replaced by the kind of the rock Pikmin for purple and the flying Pikmin for white. But yeah, it seems like they're back, as well as like the rock Pikmin is still there. Yeah, the ice Pikmin is there. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of stuff, as well as the aforementioned dog-like creature that you could use as like a steed in battle, and you can use it for traversal. Like a bunch of Pikmin can get on it, and it can then wade through water or something that would otherwise kill the Pikmin because they're not all blue or whatever. Like it seems like it's going to be a pretty versatile thing, and it can carry stuff back much more easily than usually would be the case.
Yeah, I want to say that the purple and the white Pikmin were in the challenge mode.
That's
Pikmin
true.
3.
Yeah, they weren't in the campaign, but you did see them.
And yeah, it looks like we're back to treasure and not fruit. So that's kind of exciting because they just, like it was a little bit more interesting, maybe visually. I don't know if they're going to have like some sort of encyclopedia for all the items that you pick up, all the treasure that you pick up. But
yeah, they did it too, didn't they? They had some really great descriptions and stuff. That's kind of, I mean, the fruit descriptions were pretty interesting, I guess. But
yeah, it seemed to be like
things.
One of the early titles where Nintendo was flexing its localization muscles, because before that they didn't really have that many opportunities outside of maybe Paper Mario. But yeah, so I don't know. The game looks great to me. I'm looking forward to seeing more. Mr. Glub on the Discord talked about the kind of the weird tease at the end of the trailer where they show one of the enemies at night getting red eyes and kind of freaking out. And so, like I guess we can assume that we'll be able to actually play at night this time around.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's always been night is death. It was like they said it was like built into at least one version of Alamos Final Smash in Smash Brothers. So it's like night has fallen, so everybody just starts taking damage before he crashes the dolphin on their heads. It is night is death in Pikmin, so it would be kind of interesting to whether it's some sort of like narrow scenarios that take place at night, or whether it's more flexible. Like, well, you can do stuff at night if you want to, but it's crazy shit like running into Hyrule Castle at the start of Breath of the Wild or something. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, but I mean, the look of it in general, I'd say, I feel like the environment is more colourful than we're used to seeing from the Pikmin games. It kind of like more like really kind of high visibility colours. Like it always seemed to me like there was a conscious choice with Pikmin games in that the world would have a naturalistic look. And then the Pikmin themselves and some of the enemies and stuff, they could be very colourful and cartoony and kind of weird. And that was the sort of deliberate kind of disconnect that they went for. Like, it's like, oh, it's the real world, but with these weird little things in it. And that mostly carried through from the first Pikmin to the second to the third. I guess not that the game is drab by any means, but now it just seemed to me like everything, like the treasures you're getting, the environments, like it feels like they've just wanted to say, let's make everything more colourful. Let's make everything more eye catching. I don't know whether it's part of the visual design, to help with gameplay in a way. It's just like it's easier to they think it'll be easier for players to pass, what's happening in the world, what is, kind of, you can interact with, or what paths, exist through it or something. But that seemed like, it's not like really glaringly obvious, like massive change, but a significant one, and you're perceptible.
I'm just kind of distraught that some of the enemies are really cute. Those little bird-like things. That's gonna be tough to kill.
Look, sometimes cute things must die too. They don't get immunity. This is nature, rules of nature, as it were. I don't know. I'm kind of glad this game is finally coming out, if only so we can stop asking where's Pikmin 4.
And it's July. It's going to be the sort of slot that last year was initially going to go to Splatoon, but then ended up going to Xenoblade. So yeah, it's just a little bit outside of that first half of the year window, but it's basically within 6 months. So of now. There's a kind of a theme running through this direct for me, which is things that have been in many senses quite belated, but now coming quite suddenly, very suddenly in some cases. But yeah, Pikmin 4, not so sudden because it is quite a few months yet, but still after so much time since the third one and since the now infamous, kind of remarks about, oh, well, it's done, or fun. All this from Miyamoto, that it is actually just a few months away rather than just some, kind of far off wish at this point. It feels close at hand.
So, funnily enough, we talked about that this is going in the Xenoblade slot. And the next thing that came up in the Direct was, in fact, the Phase 3 DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Where they're introducing another new party member who's something called a Lapradist. I don't know what that means. And a challenge mode where you get to take on a bunch of enemies in back to back, but only with a single character.
Yeah.
And the new character is following the proud tradition of Nintendo adding mommy characters to their games, so that's great. So all you fetishists finally have that need for Xenoblade, Matt. But then, like that's fine. That also was out right away, right? But that dropped the day of, didn't it?
Yeah, I haven't checked because I don't own the DLC yet. But
it's the 15th.
I was under the impression that part was close, and then we have the tease for the final element of the DLC campaign, which is still a fair way off, but is kind of the main course, really, that it's all been leading to.
February. So again, it's something coming very sudden. February 15th is the DLC Phase 3, and then Phase 4. We got to see a very quick story sequence tease. This is the story DLC they promised. And in it, we saw a Shulk and an adult Rex.
Yeah, that's certainly what it looked like to me.
That's Rex. We know what adult Rex looks like. That's all I'll say.
He kind of got thrown off with the. I was like, Shulk sounds like Shulk.
Right.
But then Rex, he doesn't sound like him, so like.
But he looks like what we know he looks like.
Yeah, so he's just.
And he's holding.
They've got a different different voice, actually, because he's meant to be, fully grown up at this point. I guess, like, he looks older than in that picture, right? Like,
he does.
Significantly older.
Well, given what they're showing, it's possible that picture might be the last, or that might be the last thing that adult Rex does, for all we know, because he's holding two Monados, which makes sense. And it appears that the character that the two of them are yelling at is Alvis.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is going to answer something that comes up in the spoiler cast of what the fuck is Alvis? So they might be planning to give us an answer to that question, which is kind of an interesting question because it fundamentally deals with the plot of 1 and 2 and might link them in a much more explicit way and then explain how 3 happened. But that means Shulk and Rex are in the same world at the same time.
Yeah, Shulk just seems the same. Like, he doesn't seem older. Right. I don't know whether, that it could just be some kind of offshoot from his, like, quasi-divine nature or whatever,
Oh, and we talked about, like, just because Rex and Shulk hear each other's fight, we don't know that time passes at the same speed in these places.
Yeah, God knows, yeah, but it's not, we don't have a different looking Shulk, whereas we do have quite a different looking and sounding Rex.
Yeah, significantly older Rex.
It's the bit where he mentioned Grandpa that actually really kind of solidified it for me. Like, is
that why
really
you killed Gramps?
Yeah, it really is him.
Yeah, because he's the only person who calls him Gramps. Yeah, it's him. Like, there's no question. So then it's like, okay, why are they together in the same place? Because the things that bring the world together seem to have happened after his time. Because we don't, when they're planning for dealing with it, we don't see him. Or he doesn't come up. So why are they together? And we might have the answer. We might not. But it's, it caught my attention for being on the screen for all of 20 seconds.
Yeah, it was a brief tease, but again, it's really just kind of feels like, this is what you're paying for when you buy the DLC and everything. It's not, it's not as bad as like, oh look, Link's got a t-shirt while you wait, but
right.
Like the other stuff is not really the point.
Yeah, this was the big one. All right, so next up, this leaked a little bit ahead of time. Samba de Amigo is back. And this
really
time
leaked beforehand.
it leaked like a couple hours ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
The image of the box did, and everybody was like, "Excuse me?" It's also called Samba de Amigo Party Central, which gave this brief fear of like, "Oh God, is this a party game? Did they make a Samba de Amigo party game?" It's not. Don't worry about that. It's a Samba de Amigo game with multiplayer. Gearbox does not appear to be involved this time, so it might potentially not be terrible. If you didn't realize, they made the Wii Samba de Amigo game, and that game is dog shit. But that does not.
So the issue was not the Wii tech.
I mean, I
because
don't know.
I'm kind of wondering, like, will the Switch handle it better?
What I am not saying, I want to be clear. What I am not saying is
you're saying
that
this is 100% a sure thing. This game will control amazingly.
Absolutely not, because
Wii is garbage.
I've played the original Samba de Amigo on the dedicated Maraca hardware and didn't think it was particularly good. But I am simply saying...
I got to use... A friend of mine had a Dreamcast and Samba de Amigo, and I used it like a couple of times or something. And I really genuinely couldn't tell if it was that I was dog shit at it or they were wonky.
That was my feeling.
I don't really think I played a rhythm game before that. So it was a foreign concept to me. And then I think after that I saw Samba de Amigo in an arcade once.
Yes,
and then
that's where it started.
Yeah, that was exactly. That was pretty tough going as well. But yeah, this was long before I played. You heard about rhythm games for a while before then, especially like Parappa the Rapper got quite a lot of good coverage back in the magazines and all that. It was on PlayStation. I never played it, so it was a totally different world for me. But yeah, it kind of it appealed to me, the idea of it, the sort of silliness of it, but I was rubbish at it. And yeah, I can't imagine the Wii in its original form. There's a reason why Wii Motion Plus was a thing, and that speaks to the fact that the original Wii Remote, while it was perfectly understandable that someone would go, hey, we should bring Samba de Amigo back for that, it wouldn't actually work very well. Because you've got the kind of, you could go, you obviously maraca in each hand, and you've got the kind of high position, straight position and the low position, and, it tracking that successfully. It was probably never. It was probably I don't want to absolve the developer of perhaps they could have done a better job, but you were kind of had the deck stacked against you at the beginning with that. Whereas I mean, the Joy-Con has more advanced motion sensing kind of in it, in more nuance. I would assume it's at least possible to make a better kind of emulation of the way those old arcade controllers worked.
Yeah, I am merely saying that I'm not suggesting that the removal of Gearbox guarantees anything. I am simply saying the addition of Gearbox guarantees failure. So, maybe this is addition by subtraction. It looks colorful and nice from what we saw, but
who develops this?
I don't know that we have an answer to that question. So probably just Sega internally.
Yeah.
And probably with partners, like they've probably contracted some work out, but Gearbox was primary developer on Samba de Amigo Wii, and it's not good. All right, I don't think we have that much to say about Samba de Amigo. The next one up is this is the game that caused all kinds of weird anxiety in the NWR Discord. This is the Fashion Dreamer for Switch. This is a game that looks a hell of a lot like Style Savvy, stylistically, pun not intended. The character models, like, this looks a lot like a Style Savvy game, but it doesn't have the Style Savvy name. And for those of you who aren't aware, a friend of the show, Seren McNulty, is way too into Style Savvy, to the point where she once insisted that John and I play a game about fashion.
Yeah, I mean, that's already come up on Twitter, so,
Yeah. So,
and for the record, it's, I believe, I might have gone through a couple of names, but I think it's like they settled on New Style Boutique in Europe. Like, I think they ended up releasing more of them in Europe than they did in America.
Release more of them in Europe. Yes.
Yeah, but that's it was Girls Mode in Japan, I want to say.
Girls Mode, yeah.
And then they kind of got localized a couple of different ways in the West, but yeah, it's been a while since the last one on 3DS at this point.
So, this led to a question of, is Sin Sophia the developer here? Because it looks a lot like a Style Savvy game. And the answer is yes. Sin Sophia is the developer. You might know them formerly from their name as Aki, of Aki Engine fame. But what they've been working on, amongst other things, are the Style Savvy products. And so they are making this for Monolith Soft, being published by Xseed in North America.
Monolith?
Marvelous,
Xseed, maybe?
Marvelous, yeah, Marvelous. And it doesn't mention like any kind of business components, which is a big part of the Style Savvy games. But instead it talks about finding people online and giving them a like, which led to Seren coming into the Discord and basically saying, fuck giving them likes. I need to know about business. And just trying to figure out if this was a, Sin Sophia game or not. So John, I need you to buy this game and go online and friend Seren, but don't tell her that that's who you are, at least not right away. And all I want you to do, I don't want you to interact with the game in any way except like every single outfit you can find with her on it. Because she cares about likes a lot, obviously.
I will let her take this mission.
This is a mission only you can take. And maybe post a screenshot every time you do it. I think that would really...
You think maybe a phantom Twitter account that would just constantly update?
Yeah, it would be called like at Seren McN Outfits. I don't know. Or liking Seren Outfits. There you go. That's it. And it's just a screenshot of the like every time.
Seren Outfit fan? Sound good?
Do it. This does not have a date, just 2023. That's all there is to say about this game. It exists. We got I don't think we got much in the way of new detail. Like, we knew this thing existed, but we got video of the Castlevania Dead Cells DLC. I think we got a date and a price.
Yeah, you can order it now in a bundle with Dead Cells or by itself.
Yeah, it looks nice. Then we got this another Tron game, which if you had told me in like 2006 that there's going to be like 9 Tron games between now and then, I would have thought you'd lost your mind. But there's a Tron game. I don't know that we really need to talk about it unless anybody wants to talk about this Tron visual novel that exists now. The next announcement up is the one that probably caused me to explode and also made me the most frustrated that as this direct was starting, Twitter went offline and nobody could tweet because everybody was rate limited, because that was also when Twitter launched their you have to pay to tweet thing for like people using the API, and apparently applied it to themselves. So nobody could tweet during the entire Nintendo Direct, a format created entirely to cause social media ripples, and then social media being a product entirely designed to monetize those ripples, completely fell apart. And so I could not tweet at that point the following phrase: "Oh my God, it's fucking Ghost Trick. Jesus, it's fucking Ghost Trick. I can't believe it. We're finally here. It's Ghost Trick on Switch. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is amazing. This is the best day ever." Which is what I would have tweeted, or something approximating that, because Ghost Trick is coming to Switch in HD, and it looks awesome. Has everybody here played Ghost Trick?
Oh yeah. No, I'm excited mostly because finally I'll be able to force Karen to play through it.
It's so good.
I know, but like she struggles with the puzzles, so like the idea was to play it together, but like so we tried on the DS. Doesn't really work, even an XL. It's too small. Tried on an iPad, but again, like it's not super comfortable. So finally on a TV, definitely.
I guess we'll have to see how well that kind of works on TV. The whole maybe pointer functionality, like with the Joy-Con,
that'd be good.
Or something.
Maybe, but I think I don't know. Like, this is a game where I think you can just use a stick to move the cursor around, and it's going to work fine.
It mostly just snaps the target anyway.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. It's been a while. I haven't played it since it was new, so it's been a while, for me to remember exactly how it kind of functioned. But just the fact that it's only been on kind of touch devices to this point was making me wonder, how well it would translate. But yeah, I'm sure it'd be fine.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've never played Ghost Trick, so I'm curious.
You need to play Ghost Trick.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what everyone who's played Ghost Trick tells people who haven't played Ghost Trick. You got to play Ghost Trick.
And they're right.
Exactly.
I know, but it's like, it's basically the story is so good, but like, especially certain parts of it, but you can't talk about it without spoiling it. So you got to play Ghost Trick.
Yeah, I think you're right though. I think part of the reason people who played Ghost Trick want other people to play Ghost Trick is so they have people to talk about Ghost Trick.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It's the Xenoblade X problem, where like you're yelling at people to play Xenoblade X so you can talk with them about Xenoblade X. And and how mad it's made you. All right, so that's that. Then we actually got a pretty big block on a new thing called Decapolice, which is an insane name about being a detective in a virtual world, Decapolice. I'm not even making that up. This is a very anime-looking open-world detective combat game where your character just pulls out a fucking gun and gats people. It looks really nice. It kind of reminds me of... we were talking about it in the Discord. I said it looks like an anime for 9-year-old boys visually, but I'm not saying that derisively. I mean, it looks like an anime for 9-year-old boys that had a lot of money spent on it. It looks like a level 5 game from like what level 5 would look like if they were still making games. That might come up later. But we don't know much about it. We didn't see much in the way of gameplay, but they gave it a lot of time.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about it. It didn't, like, I could tell that I'm not the target audience here.
Yeah. It's 9-year-old Japanese boys.
Yeah. Decasim, I don't know.
It looks cool, and it is a level 5 game. That was the level 5. Level 5 has made some kind of resurgence in this direct. They're going to come up again. Detectives will also come up again. This is the weird Detectives Direct. Last time it was farming. There are no farming games this time. Not really. But yeah, it looks like a level 5 game with the huge budget, which I don't know where they got the money to have a huge budget. But I'm curious this game could easily end up being a 7 and just be like, oh, it's boring ass gameplay that looks nice. A level 5 game.
Right.
But it could be cool. Like it made an impression, considering it showed almost no gameplay.
It does seem like a turn-based RPG from where I'm standing, but
I think we got to see like 3 turns worth of combat.
Right.
We got a lot. It was a lot of like, here's the story and setting stuff. We got a deep dive on Bayonetta Origins game.
So I hadn't seen this, like I when it was first announced, and so I was kind of shocked at how it looks.
Yeah, it's very much going for like storybook.
Oh, it's kind of this bit of alchemy, in there, but also, more explicit kind of pop-up storybook imagery. I talked about it, obviously, because there's that snippet that is included in Bayonetta 3. You got to see a bit more, basically, of like what this kind of. I guess I haven't played it, but it sounds like it's a little bit analogous to the game Two Brothers. Where it's like there's this kind of quasi-cooperative kind of play, but it's just you with 2 analog sticks controlling 2 characters. In this case, the young Bayonetta, Cereza, and Cheshire, this demon that's come into her soft toy, and that also pops up in Bayonetta 3 a lot. Obviously it's a lot more stylized in this game because the whole art style is more stylized. But even in Bayonetta 3, the Cheshire design is kind of amusingly bizarre and garish. It's like something... but the thing that sprang to my mind, which may not resonate with anybody, is like... do you remember that cartoon in the 90s called Real Monsters?
I do, yes.
It's kind of like something out of that. Like, he's got this garish colour scheme, he's all teeth, bizarre. He's got this, like, psychedelic nightmare going on inside his mouth. It's so weird. And he's a giant, like, cat toy, but his like tail like goes from being a bobtail to like a 5th arm that just extends and beats the shit out of things with it. He's so, and he rides like a penny farthing or something. It's just
right,
so
like
weird.
It's very Totoro like when it does
it's kind
the
of like
thing.
Fucked up Totoro, like
Nightmare Totoro.
Yeah, they're definitely going for that because again, it is like this meant to be like this little soft toy that you've seen the young version of Bayonetta carry like in the first game. and now it got possessed somehow, and it became this thing in Bayonetta 3. So I guess that's really like the point of the game. It's like, well, how did this soft toy become this bizarre nightmare to I think, well, you know, if inquiring minds did want to know, they're going to find out in this game. But, you know, it looks kind of interesting. The kind of, you know, it seems very, like, puzzle driven. You know, it's this kind of, you know, using the two analog sticks to control the characters independently, you know, like Cheche's the one that can actually engage with enemies, but Bayonetta's got to kind of, well, Cereza's got to hold them still for him or do some other things, and he seems to go through, like, some different elemental, like, thing, you know, like, his different colours in different parts of the trailers, or he probably takes on different abilities associated with that or something, so kind of looks interesting. You know, I hope it's good, you know, kind of thing. I'd be somewhat interested to check out myself. I reassert it will bomb. There is no,
oh yeah,
it's sad, you know, because it looks like you got a good amount of sort of artistry and you know, kind of love put into it, but I really would be surprised if it's anything other than you know, a flop, sadly. But even with modest expectations surely attached.
I hope it was budgeted appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sure it was to some extent, but it still, yeah, might struggle. But it's quite close at hand, so, because it's, I think, something like 3 weeks after Kirby or something, you know, in the middle of March.
March
so
15th.
Yeah, they do need to kind of talk about it and try and sell people on it, because, yeah, it's not, you know, it's not going to sell itself, that's for damn sure.
No. Next up was Splatoon 3 DLC, which was predictable when we saw the Splatoon sales numbers come out like 2 days before this.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, this, as has often been the case, I think most years they have a direct in February after the earnings report for the final quarter of the preceding calendar year. You know, yeah, Splatoon 3's crossed 10 mil. Already, so, you know, yeah, I mean, you look at how they did things with Splatoon 2, DLC was always going to be part of the package, but, one thing I've just, this was bizarre to me, the way they kind of presented this in terms of trying to make it seem appealing, because it seemed to me like it was exactly what we talked about with the Xenoblade 3 DLC, in terms of, okay, there's two parts to this, but the second part is like the actual bit. Much like the fourth and final part of the Xenoblade 3 is actually what you want.
You could trace that behavior all the way back to Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah, I already did with the crap about the t-shirt. Yeah. So, but the point is this though, is that like the first part is just like, oh well, you can have the old hub town back if you want, right? You know, like, which is like okay. I mean, again,
but they sell the same shit.
A lot of the time, yeah, we've the link in his t-shirt, like cosmetics and stuff like that, is what's in there first and all that, and then the next bit is what you want. But like, they just gave this glimpse of seemingly, I think, you know, one of the kind of idol characters from the second game, in this weird world that's been completely bled of all colour, and, you know, that's like teasing what the presumably like the sort of single player, you know, maybe like Octo expansion style like stuff will be in the second, but they called it Side Order.
They did.
So it's like, that's exactly the impression you should not give people, because it's like, no, just changing the fucking hub town is the side bit. And that's
call
the
main course.
I know
it's probably tied to the story.
I know it's a side or to like the main game. Like, you know, it's to Splatoon 3. I guess it's a side story. It's, you know, a bit on the side, whatever you want to say. But for this DLC pack, that's the big part. That's the bit you want. That's the bit you got to hold on to. This, and then maybe if you think, oh well, I'm going to buy that anyway, I may as well give them my money now so I can have the hub town, you know, in Decapolice or whatever. Look different, but
it's not an accident, because Side Order is obviously a pun of some kind. So they've thought about the wordplay here.
It's just, you shouldn't have got with it. To me, it just like kind of suggest it may have conveyed the impression. Obviously, a lot of people watching these things, they know how Nintendo does these DLC kind of, you know, how they parcel it out, and they're just trying to kind of get you to pay a bit earlier, basically, you know, with some minor perks. Like they know this. So for a lot of people,
we've called it the power of compounding interest.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of it. But so, yeah, for a lot of people, it's not going to be an issue. But, you know, just that there'd be anybody that's kind of like, so from this, I'm going to take that changing the cosmetics of the hub is the main part of this DLC. It's not going to give them a favourable impression. It's not. They're not. They're going to look at how much it costs and go, no.
See, I assumed the side order term comes from the story of the side content, and nobody just had the good sense to think of like, oh, there's an extra implicit meaning here we should avoid.
Yeah, no, I can only assume that is exactly what's going on.
But
yeah.
The other part that's baffling is, okay, all right, so you're going to put back the hub worlds of 1 and 2, and that includes the musical performances in 2. Or in the first game. Great. Awesome. Good job. You did it. But then they're like, but don't worry, the shops will all sell the same stuff, so pick the one you want. No, I'm paying for DLC. Let me buy new shit. Like, make it so if you go to the shops from the first game, you see things from the first game that aren't available in 3. If you go to the second one, you see stuff. I mean, it's Splatoon. It's not like you're going to get a huge power buff by having access to some items or others. And it might not be super balanced, but it's Splatoon. It's already not exactly the most balanced thing in the world. If it's mostly just outfits, like, okay, cool. Like give people some extra options for buying your DLC. Like make those sections have some side missions or whatever.
It's got to be sort of something like that in there somewhere. I don't know, but I just thought the messaging was with that was not great. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of people that are watching avidly know the score, but like you said, 10 million people bought Splatoon 3. That's a lot of people that may, and some of them are not necessarily going to know exactly, the way, that these things go and be able to kind of, just pass that from this kind of, deliberately oblique kind of glimpse at what the real kind of, bulk of the content in the DLC pass is going to be, with just the that kind of, it's meant to intrigue, obviously, for people like, oh, this glimpse of the world without any colour in it. But it just this a bit of a minor bungle there, not really putting your best foot forward. But I am sure it'll get those blanks are naturally going to get filled in, and people will have a more solid basis on which to make a decision before especially that second part of the DLC hits. But if you really want, this is clearly their strategy, is to get people to kind of pay before they really need to. You didn't do a great job here.
No. And they've not been good at this. Like they've been doing this now for a while, and they just can't seem to put together a compelling DLC package front to back, except for like the Mario Kart ones, where they're apportioning out the content in proper quarters. And I get it. It's because the bigger content, the cooler stuff, takes more time to make. And so they put out what they can so they can get the DLC while the game's still hot in people's minds. I get that. And yeah, it is the power of compounding interest, but also it's the power of leveraging the marketing you did when the game launched to the best of your ability.
And when it's still being discussed online, social media, and people are still streaming it on Twitch and YouTube and everything. Yeah, I mean, the currency is very much the name of the game.
That's an excellent pun, because it's true both ways.
In every sense.
Next up was we knew this game existed, but we got a deep dive on Disney Illusion Island, which mechanically looked a little bit more complicated than I expected when it was announced a while ago. It kind of looked like multiplayer, less difficult, and certainly a lot less bleak Hollow Knight.
Really?
Yeah, like just how the characters were moving around the stage. There's a lot more. There are, skills that you unlock and find to get better locomotion capabilities. Combat seemed to be part of the movement mechanics, which again, that would be that would be relevant. And I'm not saying, oh, this is like Hollow Knight. No, I'm just saying like there's more to that game than I expected mechanically, based on what it was, but also visually. Like, it's got a very distinct style that is doing a really good job of capturing what the current, Disney preferred, look of Mickey and Co. is in animated television content, which is a very non-traditional looking Mickey. Which I don't even know what that means, but like if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It's very rough looking style, where things are not particularly detailed. There's a lot of thick lines. It's very like Mickey historically has been a very polished design. Like it's very smooth character model, and it's very clean. And this is not that. So it's interesting that that's what they're going with, but it looks nice. I don't know it's going to be good, but it looks better than I expected.
Well, the comparison I thought you were going to make was with Rayman Legends, which like everyone is making that comparison because it's a 4-player platformer, and the characters seem to do the same things. Like, I'm struggling to find something that they do in here that Rayman wasn't doing.
I mean, Rayman does a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, but like they've got like the double jump that's also a hover. They do the wall jumping. Like the rhythm of the platforming seems to be almost exactly the same. I was shocked when I saw that Ubisoft was not making this. Actually,
somebody in the Discord made a comment that it looked like an UbiArts game, and I get it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know why my brain went Shovel Knight not Shovel Knight. I don't know why I kept saying Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, when I saw it. But Hollow Knight does a lot of that same stuff too, where you get things that augment your jumps, you get things that let you do a certain amount of wall jumping, other stuff like that. So like there is some connective tissue there, but I don't. It certainly is more interesting to me now than it was when it was announced. That got a date. It's the end of July. So again, it's pushing the limit of that first half of the year, but close enough. The listed studio for that one is DLA Studios, which I don't know anything about. Delala Studios, cross-platform game development. What have they worked on? Let's see. Let's just see what they've done. Our games. Illusion Island, obviously. Oh, they worked on Battletoads. They're the Battletoads studio, and it kind of has a similar. Well, look, I mean, you can't get after them for making a bad Battletoads game because that means they made an accurate Battletoads game.
Yeah, but it was bad in new and novel ways.
Well, that's good. We call it growth. It's growth for the series. Look, if you make a good Battletoads game, you've made a bad Battletoads game. I know that sounds oxymoronic, but it is what it is. I don't know that our crowd cares about this. So I'm the only person playing Fire Emblems, right? Fire Emblem, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they announced they announced all the DLC characters because it leaked. So they just put out a trailer. It's like, here's what they all are.
Here's what you already have, you jackals.
And it's everybody you'd expect. Hector, Soren, Camilla, which, my joke, Crom, my joke about how they sure love, incest in Fire Emblem Fates specifically is about Camilla. So I'm glad that she's here because otherwise, how would I remember? Crom and Robin is a combined unit, just like, the heroes are from, Three Houses. So the two heroes and the horrible Hitler-style genocidal villain. And then it's Veronica from Fire Emblem Heroes, the fucking gotcha game, and she actually has gotcha powers. I'm not kidding. She randomly summons other heroes to attack. She has gotcha powers. And they even show them like, oh, it's 5-star Ike. It's insane. So, just for that, just for the sheer, temerity of it all, I bought the DLC. And they also previewed the stage 4 again, the last stage. It's a big story DLC called the Fell Xenologues, where you meet some other characters from another world. So I started the DLC for this stuff because the first 2 characters came out at launch, and that's Tiki and the 3 house leaders from 3 houses, and they're fine. Now, of course, the core story of this game is there's 12 rings that each have an emblem in them. And so if there's suddenly 6 more, how do you square the circle from a plot standpoint? Because the plot is you have to collect all 12 to do the thing. So what if there's just randomly 6 additional? And they solve that by going, no, they're not rings, they're bracelets. It's totally different. And nobody ever speaks of it again. Nobody raises their hand and goes, excuse me, that's stupid. But yeah, they're going all in on the DLC for this game. It's a lot of content. It's different than how they've done DLC for the Fire Emblem games in the past, where a lot of times it's like you can buy mission packs. This is just it. This is one big pass, and it gives you a bunch of characters, and that's the way it goes, and there's a story thing at the end. They did launch Stage 2 the day of the Direct, so going with what we said earlier, I have not been able to access them because I just got through the Tiki mission, which apparently... so you go to a place on the map that unlocks the first one where they just give you the 3 houses characters. And then they all live inside one ring, and somebody does make the joke, it must have been real crowded in there. They then, or one bracelet, excuse me, it's completely different. Then you get a mission for the Tiki one, and then Tiki basically tells you at the end of the mission, even if the DLC wasn't out yet, you know, there are other friends who are stuck in bracelets. We should go find them. End sequence. And then I guess if you didn't have the DLC, she couldn't. My guess is if I had let it play out from there rather than just closing it for the night, more of them would have popped on the map. So, I found the mission for her fight where she's like, "Oh, I can't wait to join you, but first let me test your skills." To be kind of weird. Because they keep trying to pincer maneuver you by respawning enemies. So I just sat there until the game finally just gave up spawning enemies and said, fuck this shit. Did it take me 60 turns? Yes. Was it a good battle? Not in the slightest. Did I win? Absolutely dominated. So, you know, I'll take what I can get. But yeah, it was the whole package. It was the fact that they're putting in a character from the mobile game who literally does the gotcha pull animation and summons other heroes to attack. I'm like, no, that's too stupid. That's borderline Fire Emblem Warriors territory, like the Muso games. So this is you can play as King of Red Lions shit. So we're here now in a core game where they've basically gone full Muso. So I guess we've looped all the way back around. Let's see. Next, there was I guess this was a new announcement, from Don't Nod, Harmony, the Fall of Reverie. No offense, Guillaume, but as this trailer played, my immediate thought was, this feels like a Guillaume game.
Well, it might be. I don't know. I don't hate their games. I've played a few of them, and they were generally good.
They did Remember Me, right?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, which is the most ironically hated game in the world.
Right, like they also made some games that people like Life is Strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, Remember Me, I really enjoyed, but it was a little bit, not mechanically. It had some really big flaws, like making you hunt for a lore in its levels, but then putting invisible triggers that would force you to move on in the level before you finished exploring. So very frustrating, but the writing was good. And then Life is Strange, had its weird kind of quirks with people complained about how like teenagers don't speak that way. No one speaks that way.
The hella quirks, you mean?
Yeah. And it had some, growing pains. The first episode had this had you looking for 5 bottles in a a dump.
Yeah.
And it was like, what the hell? This is a lot of fun. Thanks. But then they course corrected. People love that game, and then this looks different. But I admit I didn't pay too close attention to it.
So it's a visual novel, from what I can tell.
Right.
But I don't. They didn't give us a lot to go off of. It's probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, just kind of suggested that you're making decisions that were once reserved for the old gods, or something.
Which are the Reverie in question.
You've got powers that people shouldn't have. So I guess that's the thing that made me kind of pay a little bit more attention. I've not very much experience with their games prior, but the soundtrack is by Lena Raine from Celeste and Chicory as well, a few other things, but. That's where I would know her work from, and Celeste soundtrack is wonderful, so that's always something to make me kind of keep track of it a bit more.
Yep. At a minimum, we'll probably hear it at the end of the show.
Perhaps so.
Yeah, and this is I don't know. It looks striking. It's
does.
Just more and more the line between cartoon and video game is being blurred, and I don't know what I'm looking at. Am I looking at traditional cell animation or something that's aiming to ape that look? And it's kind of honestly hard to tell.
Yeah, it's an eye catcher, certainly. I just because it's so dependent on its writing, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
After that, they, like a bunch of sickos, grouped together two things under the banner "Find Your Role." One of them was a new trailer for Octopath Traveler 2 and a demo that dropped right afterwards. Has anybody played that demo?
No, there's no demo. What they said was that people who buy the We Heart Katamari will have access to a demo of the first game. It's absolutely not exciting at all.
No, this is for Octopath.
Oh, I'm sorry. What am I saying? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was jumping ahead, because of the stupid roll pun.
Yes.
God damn it.
The other thing they announced as part of it was...
Bedfellows, indeed, but that is that their bad pun is what made that mix-up possible, which is just one of many reasons why it should arguably have not been made.
Yes. They combined Octopath Traveler, which is a role-playing game, with We Heart Katamari, which is a trash rolling game.
Mm-hmm. So, Octopath, yes, I have played some of the demo. So, how it works is that you get to play 3 hours of the game. You are limited also to how far you can make it into, into the map, I suppose. Right. But yeah, you can play 3 hours. I think that you can go and, you pick one of the 8 characters. You have access to all of them. You can go back and pick a different one if you want. So what I did is, because it worked out so well for me, I picked the hunter first. Because in the first game, I think it really contributed to my enjoying the first game, because the kind of the all out, that character right off the bat had this big attack that would just call the riffraff if you were fighting several enemies at the same time.
Right.
So it greatly speeded up battles, and so I'm not sure that it's as effective here, because you've got a different character. She's got different attacks that don't have this attack all enemies on the screen thing going on for them. So, but I don't remember the story of the first game. I don't really care. I think that I'm going to play this just because of the freaking soundtrack. That's one of the things, when we first saw this game revealed, as soon as the music was heard, I was just like, oh my god, I fucking love the soundtrack. And I love this game.
We're talking about We Heart Katamari.
No, Octopath.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But it's a...
Roll with it, James. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, so... Anyway, so it's the demo, yeah. So basically, your save, your progress will carry on to the full game when you get it, and it comes out in 2 weeks.
God, does it really?
Yeah, like it's like February 24th or something. It's really close. Everything seems to be bundled together. A bunch of the physical version of some game we're going to talk about later. Or
You're right.
did we already talk about? Nah. Anyway.
February 24th.
Yeah.
And then moving on, like the We Heart Katamari ReRoll,
which I had been hoping for since we Katamari Damacy was remade, basically. I was like, oh, I hope they make the sequel also, because that was stuck on the PlayStation 2 forever.
Yes.
And now it's coming, even with new content, which
Royal Reverie mode.
Right, which Katamari Damacy ReRoll did not have. It didn't have any new content. All it had was HD resolution. It had the same kind of like file system as the PlayStation 2. Like it was very much, like it was like they barely updated, like even like telling you what the controls was. Like I was kind of half expecting them to talk about the triangle button, but yeah, We Heart Katamari, new content. You play as a young king of the universe, prince of the... I can't remember what his name.
King of all Cosmos, isn't that his name?
King of all Cosmos, yes. And you get the original We Heart Katamari, which is considered superior to the first game.
Yeah,
by almost everyone. So,
and then Nintendo Switch Online members can do a game trial of the original remake,
right,
on the 20th. We Heart Katamari comes out in June.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, 220 to 226, you can, if you have Switch Online, you can play, which I probably will, because I've actually never played Katamari Damacy beyond like a little bit of opportunities to just kind of mess with it there. Sea of Stars got a deep dive. We haven't seen Sea of Stars in a little bit. It looks nice. I don't know that anybody else here cares about Sea of Stars but me.
Well, I care enough. You know, it's a game made in Quebec by people who the people who made what was that game? Shadow something? No,
I don't remember.
The ninja game that had a Jordan Peterson rant in it.
Oh yeah. The Messenger.
The Messenger. Yeah.
Yes.
Another rant. It had, I don't know, life lessons from Jordan Peterson, which made me kind of, in hindsight, regret. Anyway, whatever.
It looks nice. It looks really nice.
Yeah, it's got music by
guest composer by Yatsunori Mitsuda, which means he probably wrote the menu song, and that's it.
Right.
Omega Strikers is coming to Switch, which people seemed excited about. That I have almost no experience. People seem to like that game. It's like air hockey gas game. This is a free to play game with heroes. So I don't know that much about it, but people think it plays really well. So could be something to check out. I don't know, John. Do you have any experience with this one? Because I know it comes up on PC a bit. Okay.
Nope.
I do want to quote. I wrote this down in my notes.
Okay.
This is a quote from the Nintendo announcer, and a quote: "Pre-orders for this free-to-play game begin today." What does that even mean?
Well, you better secure a free copy now before they run out of... Yeah, I don't know.
It's such a weird phrase. Like, that, again, if Twitter had been working during this point, I would have had the opportunity to go, what the fuck are you even talking about? But I couldn't because it was still broken. We were now 30 minutes into the Direct, the marketing scheme designed to create social media outbursts. Also, I believe Instagram was having problems before Twitter did, and it may have still been having problems during the Direct. So, like, although Instagram's not really like video game space, so, whatever. So yeah, that was cool. The next thing up, something we've talked about. I think we've gotten emails about it. We've gotten questions about it. And this cemented this as a Direct for Guillaume. Guillaume, do you know what was next?
I can't tell you chronologically, no.
Okay.
Was it Game Boy?
No.
Oh.
This is the Etrian Odyssey Origins collection.
Right. I'm already seeing people disappointed that it's not the untold versions, so the remakes that were made for the 3DS. But personally, I didn't think that those remakes they didn't add something that I was looking for, which was like a more kind of rigid storytelling device, like a more basically traditional RPG, Japanese RPG kind of pacing and stuff.
It added named characters, essentially.
Yeah, and lots of, dialogue that didn't say anything. So I didn't care for it. But, so this is basically like an HD
1, 2, 3
remastered of the 1, 2, 3, the DS games, so the original versions. So
Right.
the characters, the character portraits, the monsters, all very...
Even the like weird background, even the background art for the dungeons, it looks like up-res DS, but almost like they did it as an effect.
Right. Yeah, it's I would need to look at it again, but it looks good. People are really peeved at the price too, though, because
how much is it?
These are, I guess, quote unquote full price, but by full price I mean like full price for like a 3DS game.
40.
Yeah, like it's
Okay.
50 in.
I think so.
Well, it's 150 in Canada for all three.
Oh, that's the price per unit?
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
what they're doing, I think, is like 3 for $80.
Mhm.
But then they're selling them separately for like $40 each. So it's like you get one free quote if you buy the 3 of them as a bundle. Otherwise, it's $40 each. So and in the UK, it's £35 for an individual Etrian game. So it's kind of the same price as something else that'll come up later on. But I mean, it's I don't know, kind of how. I think the biggest thing for me is how well's it going to work on Switch, without the dual screen. I know.
Well, from what I could see from the just from the trailer, it looks like you hold down maybe the ZR or ZL buttons and move your stick around to draw the map as you're playing.
Right.
Like it kind of switches from the controlling the main screen and controlling the.
It kind of looks like a Twitch stream or something with the you've got the 4x3 like visual of the what would have been on the top screen on DS, and then we've got another little box out of the what would have been the bottom screen with the map, your drawing and stuff. I mean, it's just, I only played Persona Q2 out of that whole like lineage of games that went from the DS all the way through to the real end of the 3DS. Persona Q2 was late. But it's, I don't know how well you can really replicate. It's just something about having it on the 2 screens, being able to just sort of casually fill in the map like that I don't know how we'll see, like what you talked about with those controls could work. It's just nice that the series is getting to survive what seems like to be, I mean, look, nothing's guaranteed, especially things that aren't like hugely successful. Obviously it was successful enough to keep making a lot of games in this style, so like it obviously was a viable series, but not so huge that it's survival into the future when there isn't the hardware that kind of makes it a natural fit anymore in the marketplace. So I think it's nice that it is surviving in that way. I guess one of the things that might have killed like putting the Untold versions in or anything is just, there wasn't one of 3. So it's kind of a little bit more like, well, you've got 1 and 2 have the story stuff, but the third one doesn't. Like, I guess that kind of probably maybe made it easier for them to say, no, let's just, remaster. It's basically stuff that was just on DS before they got to 3DS, where you had Untold 1 and 2, 4, Nexus, Persona Q, Persona Q2. There was a lot on 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I actually bought Untold 2 and I haven't played through it. So like one tactic that I might recommend to other people who might be in my situation is like just buy 3 alone And then Atlas games they get on deep discount eventually.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, when you talk about people bristling at the price here, you kind of feel like some of that is probably in the context of the deep sales that the Etrian games have been on the 3DS eShop and many times, but even just relatively recently, even as the store's about to sunset, they still go on these deep discounts that people can buy. So, that will, there's a reason why Nintendo doesn't tend to discount things more than 30%. Like, it does start to make people, affect the way that people look at the value of the thing in question if you keep doing that. It's not really a shock that response has been in effect here.
Right, and I swear, like, if you don't need 3 almost identical games, like, you don't need to buy them all at once.
They're like 40 hours, too!
Yeah, at least. So by the time you finish one, like, you're gonna get a sale on the next one.
Yeah, so that whole...
You're gonna end up paying less.
The whole getting one free thing, you'll probably still come out ahead if you choose to buy 1 and 2 eventually, if you just wait long enough for them to, fall in price somewhat. So, yeah, you really have to be looking at it thinking, look, I wanna chain these things together because maybe you've played out the 3DS stuff and you've had a pent up appetite for Etrian that you're ready to go all in straight away. Other than those people, it seems like patience is the way to go.
It does look like it was large. So, I mean, one good news is that it means they finally upgraded the Etrian bot. That just makes Etrian games, because the rate they used to publish these things implies no human was involved in their creation. But now we've got HD ones, so maybe we're back. Maybe we're going to get the monthly Etrian game we were getting at some point. But it looks nice, the up-res. I mean, it does look like they deliberately went for make the 3D stuff, the dungeon exploration, the first-person stuff, look kind of grungy, because that's how it looked on the DS. And it's kind of an interesting effect as a result. This is June 1, by the way. I don't think we'd mentioned the date. It is right on the halfway through the year. Next up, hey, Reboot Camp's finally glad. I'm glad the war's over. Well, actually, no. Reboot Camp is finally coming out, quote, in a couple of months, end quote.
Right. You said on Discord that made you laugh, and yeah, I had the same reaction. It's like, okay, why the extra 2 months?
Yeah.
Or why not just talk about it in 2 months?
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny, as obviously, this was, we kind of already teased with the whole, like, belated but sudden theme. Like, yeah, there's stuff here that was, and it's out today. And if I had to guess, Advance Wars would have been the kind of my pick, probably, because we know it's been done. Like, that's obviously not in question. And also,
do we think that they just want to give room for Fire Emblem to, not suck all the air out of the room?
That is probably what is at work here, is the reality of it, because, there is a certain amount of overlap there, with the gameplay styles, although, I mean, it feels like there's less overlap than there used to be now that, Fire Emblem has, kind of found the fountain of the mobile game. It's clearly based on what James was talking about, the DLC. It's feeding back into the main series. If anyone had any doubt that was going to happen, it's happening. Still, the fundamental kind of strategy gameplay, there's some overlap there. So yeah, I'm sure that's it. But you know what I mean? Just like the fact that something is already so, again, belated, it kind of feels that kind of natural. That would have been like, it's here. And also just because, like, I don't know how well served it can be by kind of like a promotional push at this point. It's kind of, it's just been dealt a bad hand by circumstance, and at a certain point you just got to put it out and get back what you can. And hopefully, I mean, fundamentally those games are good games. I've played them before, so you've got something to work with there. The kind of the aesthetics, I think, kind of work for what I've seen of them, in terms, especially the very toy-like kind of images of the actual units, going against each other. So yeah, I'm glad it's coming, but I just, at this point, it's like, I don't know. Do you feel like it's just waiting for something else to go wrong in the next 2 months, or it's like, well, nah, it's already, everything's gone so wrong. You can't really get much worse. So it's just going to happen in 2 months.
We talked about this when we did the email on it. It was this week, like when they canceled the release, like it was it was the very beginning of the war, and everybody believed, and I mean everybody believed, that we were headed towards now, let's be careful when I say this. It's been completely horrific, and I said it in the episode we came up in, I'm going to say it again. Everyone in the Russian administration is a war criminal, and if any of them end up on trial in The Hague, it would be beautiful. It won't happen. We're likely going to have to rely on other Russians to administer justice, which is the way it is, but none of them are anything but guilty of horrific criminal activity, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, acts of aggression. Basically, any charge you could have thrown at anybody following World War II, they're all guilty of it. So, be that as it may. At the time, we thought we might be looking at that on a national scale rather than a regional scale. It's not for lack of effort. It's just for lack of competence. And lack of, what's the opposite of corruption? Lack of good governance? Lack of...
some sort of like institutional efficacy, actual functioning institutions.
Lack of competence, lack of...
Social capital, maybe?
Yeah. It turns out running your government as a kleptocracy is probably not a strong decision when you actually have to use it. Go figure. Now, their idiocy, ignorance, incapability, remarkable degree of fallibility is a net positive for the world and for the poor countries on their border. But if it had gone the way we were fearing, this game may have never come out. Because it may have been like, okay, it's done. This is real bad. But that alternatively meant it hung around in the news. And so I guess at this point they've decided. Now, doing it in spring's a little bold because that's probably when things are going to heat back up after this winter lull. So, choices. But I mean, at this point, like, unless something dire happens, I can't imagine. Well, something more dire than the already dire. So they said they just get it out. But in a weird way, I don't want to say it's going to be good for this game. Clearly, this is not good. I don't know that it's going to hurt it that much because I don't know that it would have gotten a ton of attention anyway. It's a remake of a GBA game from 20 plus years ago, or two GBA games from 20 plus years ago. They're not even mentioning intelligence systems in connection with this game, even though it's their game being remade by WayForward, but it's their game. We talked about that with the Xenoblade Tide. Well, actually, that wasn't on the episode yet, was it? Okay, we'll get to that. But it was obviously a very modest project to begin with, so it's possible that like this weird connection might have gotten more people to pay attention to it. Because for the last year, people have been saying, like, it's Poochie, where's Advance Wars? And in a weird way, even though that was done almost as a meme and as a joke, at least I would argue that brand awareness is up as a consequence. Not that they did this for marketing purposes. I think Nintendo looked at the hand this game was dealt and just said, oh, fuck, we could be looking at, some real horrific images that we're about to see. And we did. And then we're going to be releasing a game about one country invading another. It's probably not the time. A cartoon game where war is fun. Probably not. And I wouldn't be surprised if Reboot Camp was also a brief reheat of the franchise to see, like, is there any like marrow in this bone that we can go try to get out? Can we do something with this franchise? They already did one attempt with Bui and Battalion Wars. the infamous Bui.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Those games were pretty. That was still while the main series was going on, though. I mean, because
wasn't it basically right after they stopped?
I'm pretty sure Days of Ruin was after Battalion Wars 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Which was the third.
But that game didn't even come out in Japan officially.
I'm not sure Advance Wars 2 did come out the same way either. I think maybe that was bundled in with something. It didn't even get a standalone release, or there's something odd going on for a series that was Famicom Wars, for so long. And then, finally, in the GBA generation, we started to get it in the West. For whatever reason, in Japan, they were at that exact moment were dialing it back, and like you said, Advance Wars, Days of Ruin, or Dark Conflict as it was known, I think, in Europe, was not really for the Japanese market at all, even though obviously it was written in Japanese. Because the creators are Japanese, but then it was never released in it. Although I think perhaps there was a Club Nintendo thing.
Nintendo.
Yeah, well, eventually, but some truly strange stuff. But definitely, throughout the aughts, it was a going thing. In various, I think you had those spin-offs with Battalion Wars on Wii and GameCube originally, but basically once that decade ended, it's been it was defunct until now.
I could see Intelligent Systems is not part of Nintendo. I have to remind people of that every so often. Now, you would be hard pressed to notice this because I think they even share some office space. But Fire Emblem Heroes is a joint project between the two companies, and Intelligent Systems get some cash, some capital out of that project continuing to be successful. I think Cypher was just them. I don't think Nintendo was involved in all, irony of ironies. A card game. Now, they might have facilitated, but it is what it is. I could see them wanting to at least reheat this franchise to see if there's anything worth going after, because maybe, Fire Emblem Heroes has been going for a long time for a mobile game. I think they just had their 6th year anniversary or something like that, which for a mobile game is really a long time. And it's still getting new content constantly. Maybe I could see an Advance Wars mobile game working. You figure out the monetization strategy. And this was also a Discord conversation of, getting your summertime fun Olaf. But there's something there. There's just not enough characters. So how do you get more characters in your franchise? Well, you make more games. And if you think I'm joking, Three Houses characters are all over Fire Emblem Heroes at this point. So strike while the iron's hot. April 21st is the date on this. It's back for pre-order. It was up for pre-order, then it was down for pre-order. It's back up. Next up, this is the Kirby game, Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Some new story post-game content. Mm-hmm. I'll defer to one of y'all on this one.
Well, it's you get the original Wii game with the new coat of paint, and also you get new content that unlocks once you finish that game on the Switch.
Playing as Magolor.
Right, Magolor, who lost all his powers or something, and it seems to be similar to other modes like that one where was it in Robobot or Triple Deluxe where you played as someone.
Well, DDD is right. In Triple Deluxe in the beautifully named DDD Tour. And then Meta Knight had a campaign in the Robobot kind of post game.
Okay, and in those, what you did was play little segments of the full game, but you didn't have a brand new stage. You had basically it would warp you to a scene, and you would play a bit with that character and their abilities, and then you would make your way to
It was
the
like
end
an
and get back
expedited
out.
run through the
Yeah.
game. Like it's kind of like the sort of the lean kind of version of the campaign, and it's time attack, and you're using a different character who's got different abilities. And it's something that goes back quite a long way with Kirby games. I think the Kirby's Adventure remake for GBA had a Meta Knight post-game time attack mode.
Okay.
The Kirby Superstar Ultra has a Meta Knight speedrun mode. Like, so that immediately is where my mind went to. It's like, cause I had that game, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, or Kirby's Adventure Wii, if you were buying it in Europe like I did. And I don't remember it having one of those. Like DDD2 was like the first one. So I felt like, I think it had like a harder mode or something. Like it had some kind of post-game thing, but it wasn't one where it's like, oh, here's a different character that has different abilities. So immediately that's what I thought, but it didn't really explicitly say about time attack or something. It was this whole thing about, he's lost his powers, you're kind of giving him back abilities or something. Like they were kind of focusing on that.
As you kill enemies, you get basically experience points that go into leveling up abilities, and you choose what you level up.
Yeah,
like
this
mobility
a
or
skill
his
tree type stuff, but for a Kirby character, it seems so. Yeah, maybe it's a bit more different from that kind of in Kirby series, so it's relatively well worn format of taking the other character and doing a speed run. That maybe is a little bit more different, but we'll have to see. But it's something that it's kind of a natural gap in that game compared to the effectively its sequels on 3DS in Triple Deluxe and Robobot both had this kind of thing. And I always like them. I like the speedrun element, I've got to say. Not because I'm good at it, because I'm generally rubbish at it, but it's something to add to a Kirby gameplay that I think is kind of valuable because obviously they oftentimes are different characters as we discussed, like Meta Knight and DDD, but still like fundamentally it's like, it's easy to get from A to B, but doing it smoothly, doing it quickly is trickier. You know what I mean? Like, you could just float over stuff with Meta Knight's wings or whatever, but it's about maintaining pace. It just adds this kind of urgency that, I think obviously regular Kirby sometimes kind of lacks because it's such a laid back game. So I always like those kinds of modes. But not entirely clear if this is what that is, or, with Magolor, or maybe it's something a little bit different, but I guess it's fundamentally going to fulfill a similar purpose. It was, even, Forgotten Land has something a little bit like this, it's in the back half of the game, a kind of condensed portion of the campaign plays out at a certain point in that as well. So, I would definitely be surprised if it's like actually all new level elements or something. I'm sure it'll be like cobbled together from, bits of the original game, and then maybe, have some like, connective tissue that's new, or some new elements.
So they say
you see like this place that seems to have like several warps too. So like a hub, and
she's dimension hopping is what the game says.
Yeah.
This comes out on the 24th. Again, I think it's the second game we've said is coming, and it got a demo dropped as well. Moving on, big announcement. Game Boy is coming to the Nintendo Switch Online, not expansion pack. We'll get to that in a minute.
And by is coming, you mean it was coming, and now it's out.
It was not. It was not out at the time they said it, but came out about an hour or so later. Right. First wave of games is Tetris, the original green screen Tetris that made the Game Boy the powerhouse it was. Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX, Gargoyle's Quest, Game & Watch Gallery 3 for some reason. And then,
why not start with the best one?
Well, also, I guess it just seemed like they wanted to balance out original Game Boy and Game Boy Color stuff. So they kind of they went with Link's Awakening DX, which it kind of means the original version is still kind of exclusive to that Game & Watch that they put out. the Zelda Game & Watch, because they are, every other time they've reissued it, they reissue the colour version, which, you know, for the most part, I guess, why not? But, you know, it's kind of,
it was compatible with the original Game Boy as well, so like you could see what it looked like.
And then, maybe they just wanted, those in Wario Land 3, you know, they didn't necessarily go for the first ones in the sequence, did they? You know, they each get like Super Mario Land 2 instead of the original. You know, they had some of that kind of early stuff, you know, kind of as you'd expect, like you're going to have some mix of like stuff that was really early and then kind of some things that represent the various years that the system was out. Right. Like they kind of went that way with it.
They had like that Alone in the Dark, that weird Game Boy Color port is one of the games. That was a real mind blower. And then right afterwards, they announced Metroid 2 for Game Boy, which, we did a retroactive on that. Here's the thing. It's not great.
Well,
no,
definitely,
it's not great.
Definitely the probably the way to experience that concept is one of the few Metroid things that you can't play on Switch. It's Samus Returns on 3DS. That is definitely, I think, something that's it's so kind of radically expanded in that remake form. It's just a different game in many respects. But it does hew to the concept of just like genocide, just wipe out all the Metroids. And structurally has some of those underpinnings. So that's the way to just play that on 3DS if you can.
The other perk, you're not being shot from off screen with enemies that respawn when they knock you out of the screen.
That's the real issue again, as we talked about on that retroactive. Has been said, goodness knows how many times by people discussing Metroid 2, it just went for this big, detailed, Samus sprite, but the downside of that approach on Game Boy was that meant that the playfield around the playable character become frightfully small, and then, yes, you get things attacking you from off screen, and it's difficult to kind of distinguish areas from one another, especially when you haven't got a map, because there's not a lot of detail, and you're just not seeing very much around the character. I mean, it's a very dubious decision. I will say, I think, when it's in a subscription service like this, I think this is the way to kind of dabble with it, sure. For people. So it's like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have heard what's been said about Metroid 2 over the years and like, I'm not going to pay for that on Virtual Console. But now that it's here, something like this, it's kind of the way that, mess around with it, see how much you could get out of it. I think it has some virtues in there, amidst all the kind of questionable decisions and hardware limitations and whatnot. But, some people might find they enjoy it more than they imagine, but it's just, more viable when you don't have to plonk money down up front in this scenario. So that's a plus, I'd say.
You mentioned Wario Land 3, Kirby's Dream Land.
I actually played Kirby's Dream for the first time. I'd never played the original before. I kind of have, because like Spring Breeze in Superstar, right. But he's essentially a remake. Oh, there's some differences.
It's basically the whole game.
Yeah. I think, well, there was one bit that stuck out to me that I don't think is in Superstar. It's like a shoot 'em up bit in Dreamland. Right. I think that was like, they didn't go with that. And obviously what they did in Dreamland, this is the real difference. What they did in Superstar is they brought the copy abilities in. Whereas in the original Dreamland, Kirby couldn't do that yet. They hadn't invented it. So, it is interesting to play a Kirby game without copy abilities. So you are just attacking by inhaling and shooting out enemies. Like that. It was a fun little, it took virtually no time at all, but, it was quite, again, it's one of these things that's just like, because of the nature of it and because of the other Kirby stuff I played, I'd never got to a point where it's like, I'll pay for Kirby's Dream Land, but when it's here for no extra cost, I was like, I'll run through that. It was fun. I was done very quickly, but, that's one of the things this is good for, especially once the library expands a bit, from this initial offering.
But they will also feature the Game Boy Pocket, and Game Boy Color.
Yeah, the
modes.
filters, so the filters, I mean, first of all, you've got, do you have it stretched or do you have it at an integer scaling, kind of thing. So I always go with the integer scaling on that. It just always looks much cleaner that way. But yeah, they've got filters, which they seem decent. Like they're not, I've certainly seen worse, but I don't think it's as good as M2's original Game Boy filter that they have on those Castlevania Contra collections. Like I don't think it's that, authentic. And they're a bit,
I agree.
They're a bit dim as well. Like they're bright. I'm sure part of the, they famously were, very, kind of difficult to see screens unless you would be bathed in light. But, it's bringing it down a bit too much, for me. And I mean, I guess, so yeah, with the original Game Boy, you get the green tint to everything, to emulate that. Pocket is pretty much, the way they looked on 3DS Virtual Console. Pretty much, and then, if you go with the color filter, then, you've got a pretty sort of, it's a nice touch because they didn't have this on Virtual Console. They didn't have the color option, what it would look like if you put it in a Game Boy Color. So that's kind of neat, I think. And what you get with that particular kind of look as well, apart from the color, is just like the whites are a lot more bright. And if you don't have the, it's pretending to be on a Game Boy Color screen, if you don't have that filter on, it's just the whites pop. It's brighter in general, not just the actual color component of it. So that's probably how I'll play most of them.
And I think if your game had a Super Game Boy mode, which a lot of games did for an era, where it's like, here's the default color palette that we recommend. I think those ended up looking really good on Game Boy Color as well.
Yeah, like I said, I think you did have some that had pre sort of the preset, because you could cycle through different palettes, couldn't you? I don't think you could do that here. On real hardware, you had a few that you could go through, but yeah, the ones that kind of had, kind of some almost like presets. Like I think Metroid 2 was one of those, tended to look really nice on that. But yeah, it'd be nice when you get to something like, DK94, if they did have the Super Game Boy mode on top or something,
right,
but
with the voice samples and
it had a different end credit song and all sorts of things, but I'm not expecting it. But it's nice that we've got this much, I guess.
So Guillaume, you said before the show you've been playing around with it as well. What did you poke at?
Well, I played through Super Mario Land 2. What the impression I got from doing that is that I wasted an hour of my time.
Nice.
Well,
the reviews are in.
It's interesting in that it was weird at the time because Mario went to space and what is this
it's hippopotamus? A weird game.
Yeah, with bubbles coming out of its ears and you take one.
Why does Mario live in a giant Mario robot?
Right, yeah, there are Nintendo blocks, Lego, fake Lego.
Yeah, so Nintendo R&D 1, history lessons woven into the game, yeah.
It's at some point, but the thing is, now mainline Mario games, he has been into space, and we've seen stuff that, because in this game, one of the bosses is the three little pigs. One in a straw house and one in a wooden house and one in a brick house. So, you kill them all. There's stuff like that. So it's extreme, it feels really off because it was not made by the main Mario team. But now the main Mario team has put rabbits on the moon. Yeah. Based on a Japanese folklore thing I think it's based on a children's story or anyway. So the things have converged a little bit. So Super Mario Land 2, very weird. There is an enemy that's just a hockey mask with feet with a knife sticking out of it.
Is that in the spooky zone or whatever?
The pumpkin zone.
Pumpkin zone. There's just a Halloween town thing in this game. It was weirder then, I guess. Like you said, there's been just so much Mario stuff since. It's kind of lost its unique place, and it's
still weirder than anything.
No, that's true. The full mix of things,
but it's
is weirder,
harder to appreciate it. It's
Yeah,
harder to appreciate the weirdness because it just it doesn't stand out as it once used to, and also, yeah, Game Boy games old and like this is better than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like I talked about Fall of the Foot Clan, the first Game Boy game, which was basically had the gameplay of a Tiger Electronics device. This is much better than that, but it's still very much a very slight game. Very short. There's not a whole lot to it.
I think I've talked about this before. I think I almost did complete it on one of those toy days at the end of term at school where someone's scared, because I didn't have a Game Boy growing up, but it's like, everybody brings it. It's the last day of school. Everyone's brought their shit up. Someone's got a Game Boy. All right, that's it. Yeah, Castlevania, Super Mario Land. This was my chance. And yeah, you could get through a lot of it, if not all of it, quite easily. But I mean, the raison d'etre of this thing back then was, you've looked longingly at Super Mario World, but you don't have a Super Nintendo yet? Well, this is kind of like that. Don't you want this?
Right.
Again, we've obviously just like, that's no longer operative, is it? They went on to do much more like portable, specific, and like interesting things of their own with the Wario Land games. Obviously you can play Super Mario World anytime you like on NSO, for the Super Nintendo part of it, and presumably eventually through the GBA part of it as well. We must assume, but yeah, it just like it's again, I think it's interesting as like a historical curio if you just want to fill in your kind of knowledge of, Mario series history, just like we were talking about Metroid series history. But, as a standalone experience, I don't think it's gonna, do, great things for people. But yeah, it is at least, you can see it quickly. And get the idea of what was going on here. And I think from that historical curiosity point of view, I think the most interesting part of it is how it feeds into Wario Land, how you got to Wario Land, because obviously it's the introduction of Wario as the villain, but also just some of the kind of weird ways that the game does deviate from regular Mario action are kind of, you can see the seeds of what they were going to end up doing, and generally just games that had a lot more of their own quality and a lot more of their own kind of merit for a portable system, with which you can see with Wario Land 3, right? It's right there.
Right. I just, I played these games to death when I was a kid, but today, So, James, at some point, there was news about a new SteamWorld game, and I went and downloaded the first, the DSiWare SteamWorld tower defense game.
Yep.
And you said something about how you weren't spending 5 minutes on the DSiWare tower defense game, and I gotta say you were right to take that stance, because there's no time. Yeah, any time that you spend on this old stuff, that's not excellent, or that's not it's basically time wasted, right?
It's got to do something. It's got to do something unique, and they couldn't even give the game a real name. They called it SteamWorld Tower Defense, which is not a real title. That's a description.
It's a genre.
That's true. Yeah, the other ones aren't like genres, are they? Dig is not a genre.
SteamWorld Tower Defense is what
genre.
somebody. That's what somebody on this show says when they can't remember the name of the SteamWorld Tower Defense game. It's not what they should call their game.
Anyway, so I had that same kind of feeling playing through Super Mario Land 2. This is, outside of that, historical curiosity kind of thing. It doesn't really have anything going for it. That's not a great Mario game.
Well, it does in that it's included in the service you already pay for.
Yeah. So that's basically it. But it doesn't, it's even got some issues with collision detection or stuff like that. It doesn't play that great.
It feels a bit wonky.
Game Boy games for the most part weren't that great. They were just miniature versions.
I don't know about that.
Some of them,
some of them fare better.
The thing with this game is that it's still, and again, some of this is probably trying to show progress from the original Super Mario Land. It's like, again, I mean, not that it's as bad as Metroid 2 or Turtles in this respect, but again, it's like, look at how much bigger and more cartoony and expressive and like Super Mario World the sprites are. But it doesn't really, that wasn't the best sort of fit for the Game Boy. Now, of course, the irony is they made like Wario even bigger and more cartoony and expressive for the Wario Land games, but they made the games play fundamentally differently. They were much slower paced than you'd ever expect a Mario game to be. They're much more about puzzle gameplay. They ended up taking away death altogether. Like, they totally redesigned the games around the fact that it had this big, slow moving character and stuff. So they just weren't there yet. They were in this weird interstitial thing where it's like we're pretending to be like Super Mario World. It's got an overworld map like Super Mario World and all this kind of stuff, but it's not as good as Super Mario World, and the Game Boy was not the place for a game like that. That the hardware didn't really have everything that you needed to make a game like that. So I think it was just the case of they probably, especially for the time, did a relatively made a relatively good fist of the kind of the brief they were given. The mission statement of like, give us, Mario World Junior. They did it. But that isn't, especially, years removed from that moment in time, it's not the greatest thing in the world.
But they also made sure to make, like, if you go look at the what was Mario Land 1, like, it looks very primitive.
Yeah, it showed progress, didn't it? It's like, look, if people are telling you that's all the Game Boy can do, well, they're wrong. Look at how good this stuff looks now. Like,
it looked multiple generations
but
better.
Also, like, it had, it had this thing has like secret exits that lead to new levels that are optional. Like, this stuff seemed advanced back in the day.
Well, because it was
for someone who owned a Game Boy. But now this stuff, you can't look at it through those eyes again. Like, we're past those days, so that makes it just less interesting. Like, I was playing through it, and I was like, oh yeah, like, there's a secret here. I remember it. I'm not going to go there. It's just going to make the game longer. I don't want to be playing this for longer than I have to. So I
actively
didn't.
hate this game.
So
I hope this game has a bad day. I hope this game never has a cold side of the pillow.
Anyway, so basically, I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I guess this is good to have for quote unquote free, or like it comes with your subscription for Nintendo Online. But I was like, I struggle to see who would be that interested in playing these over and over again. That said, like, hopefully the library will grow quickly enough.
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing. I mean, we're about to enter the platform's 7th year here, so you can pick up the pace a little bit.
All right, so announced the 2 Zelda Oracle games, Pokemon, the trading card game, and Kirby Tilt and Tumble. Note, all of those are Game Boy Color games.
Kirby Tilt and Tumble is interesting. But what's interesting about it is it's a motion sensor game. Like, it is. The idea that is actually in a service, like, because I don't think that was on Virtual Console, so like that would be just something that hasn't come back before, but also that they're doing motion sensor games. I don't know, because obviously use sort of bespoke, it's built into the cartridge, and naturally that's how you did it back then. You can have like bespoke technologies each time, so like whether any are more difficult to emulate, but I don't know whether that puts WarioWare Twisted in play.
I hope it does.
I mean, it's not going to be the same as that weird clicky rumble thing,
but
that
it's
it
so
had
good.
But it's such a good game that WarioWare Gold had like pretty much all of it in there and stuff, but it would be great if that was available on the other part of the portable subscription service.
But also, since like we don't have to pay for individual titles, like throw Yoshi Universal Gravitation or
I've never played it, so that would be the definition of what I was like. I'd mess around with it.
Why would you turn down a game with such a great title as Yoshi's Universal Gravitation?
That's got to be the nadir of the literal title.
That somebody should. Like, I don't like to call people to lose their jobs, but somebody should have lost their job.
I think that was the problem, that nobody had the job.
Oh,
They just left it. You know what I mean? Like they just nobody did anything with it. That's the problem. They needed someone with that job of like, no, we need to change that. That doesn't work.
That's stupid. Who did this? Who thinks this is a good idea? But you alluded to it. Also coming to the expansion pack is Game Boy Advance games. So this is now included in your bundle that got you Genesis garbage and N64 games. We are now getting
some pretty good games for the Genesis. So,
No, there are, but there's been a lot of junk lately. Columns is in there though, so it's all redeemed. Super Mario Advance 4.
That's what keeps the whole thing upright, isn't it?
Yeah, it holds up the ceiling. Mario Advance 4, Mario Brothers 3, which is some fucked shit.
Interesting choice, like I say, to go with that. Like, you might have thought they would have gone with the launch one, Super Mario Advance, which was Super Mario Brothers 2, just because it was a launch game, kind of like Tetris fills that role with the Game Boy selection. Although, as well, I forgot to mention, in Japan, they've got like some really early Mahjong game,
right?
So that, and they don't have Alone in the Dark, so like that was the trade there. Like
what a trade!
A really early Mahjong game for a late Game Boy Color game. I get but weird stuff going on there. But yeah, with the GBA stuff, Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, they've got the e-reader stuff just like the Wii U Virtual Console did. Yes. So that's cool, but that's
right because Mario Brothers 3 is already on this service, right?
Because I mean, both, but yes, no, absolutely, it is already there. But this version, I mean, you've got some of the same problems that you have with these other Super Mario Advance games in terms of losing the visible play area around the character because of the lower resolution of the GBA relative to NES and Super NES games, but it's not as bad with this one because, of course, quite a bit of the screen in Super Mario Bros. 3 was lopped off for, like, the P meter and all that kind of stuff. So, whereas the P meter is just an overlay in Super Mario Advance 4, so it's a pretty good version.
Also, like, they changed the design in some levels, too. Like, some platforms are just longer than they used to be.
Yeah. It's a pretty good... I played through it on Wii U to death, pretty much. I think all the e-reader stuff and all that. It's some drawbacks, but a pretty damn good version with some weird extra stuff, some kind of Mario Maker-y kind of weird stuff in the e-reader section of other items and powers that come from other games getting kind of introduced into Mario 3 levels and stuff. Of a classic. Mario 3 is an all-timer. So yeah, it's obviously not that amazing from the point of view you've already got two perfectly good versions because Super Mario All-Stars of Mario 3 available to you, but the fact that it's got that e-reader stuff helps justify, because they don't always do this, like I mentioned before, like with the Virtual Console, like the Wii U one, they had Kirby Superstar on the Virtual Console, but they did not have the DS remake of it on there. So they don't always put all the versions on there. I mean, there's plenty of times they have put sort of what it could be regarded as redundant other versions on Virtual Console, but not always. So this wasn't a slam dunk. And I mean, I guess we'll see if they go with the other ones as well, that don't have something as weird as e-reader content, but like the Super Mario World, for instance, or Yoshi's Island, when they're both on the Super Nintendo portion of NSO. But I think it's worth looking at. Well,
it's not like the GBA had more Mario titles to bring. This is what they had. So
they didn't have original ones, that's for sure. So yeah, you kind of had to go with that.
Yeah.
I just dumbfounded by the okay, we're gonna throw another Mario 3 at you, have fun. But also we talked about the nadir of things. This was also the nadir of the Super Mario Advance naming conventions.
Oh, definitely the naming is the clunkiest, yeah. Because at least like when it's Yoshi's Island, it's like you don't get like Super Mario twice.
And it's such a dumb conceit. They could have just said it's Yoshi's Island Advance, and I guess they were reserving that.
I guess it's because that I don't know whether it mostly came from the American branch, because of course, like in Japan, Yoshi's Island was just Yoshi Island, or it wasn't Super Mario World 2. That was an American thing. And then, so I don't know whether it just like, oh, well, we did that back in the day, not even 10 years ago at that point. Funny, it's a funny thing. There wasn't really that big a gap. But yeah, so we'll stick with that. Kind of attaching the Super Mario branding to it.
It ends up being so bad. WarioWare, the original WarioWare Mega Micro Games, is also on the service, which is a great game. Kurukurin, which is a import game. Was that available on the eShop? It was, right?
So it's but on the Wii U.
Yeah, I played that for the first time on the Wii U Virtual Console. It was a game that I read about back then, on Planet N2000, or the precursor to Nintendo World Report at that time. But I didn't get my GBA until the UK launch in June of 2001, and I went with Castlevania and F-Zero. So yeah, it kind of passed me by at that time, even though it kind of had good reviews and as an early game and, seemed kind of interesting. But I went back to it on Wii U Virtual Console, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's just a spinning stick in a maze game. That's what it is, but it's pretty well executed. I also have the GameCube sequel, Kururin Squash, or I think it's called. Yeah, that's pretty cool as well.
That's irritating stick, is it not?
Yeah, I guess so. That's how I've
I don't know. I've never played it.
It is irritating stick, yes.
Yep.
But I played some Kururin. So this and Super Mario Kart is what I went to for the GBA stuff.
Super Circuit. Yeah.
Super Circuit, yeah. And Kururin, this is perfect, like if you've never played it, you wouldn't have given it a shot if you didn't already have it. If you've got the expansion pass, you can play this, so I encourage you to try it. I would tell people don't get too bogged down by trying to beat the kind of the scores, get the medals or whatever it is. Just try to make it through the levels, because that kind of killed my run through the game on the Wii U. But right now I'm not trying to finish stages without hitting the walls even once, or without, or trying to beat the ghost times or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, it's a much better experience.
I think stuff like that, I mean, it's kind of nice that it has stuff like that in a way, but a lot of that is about self-consciousness of like, oh, this is a retail game. I know portable games were cheaper, but it's like we've got to give people some kind of lasting, appeal to this game, and all that kind of thing. And it's just like, well, you don't have to worry about any of that now. You're not even paying specifically for this. Just take what you want from it.
Oh, and this is also a problem that Super Circuit has, because I had forgotten about this, but
which I haven't introduced yet, Guillaume.
I'm sorry. Well,
Mario Kart Super Circuit's also in the list.
Yes. And so I played that, and I was reminded that you're scored on the number of coins that you grab as you go around the track, and that's just annoying because, okay, I got the gold trophy on this cup, but no, you got a D ranking because you didn't grab all the coins as you were going.
Oh, I spent so much time getting the best ranking on that. You have to not get hit once in an entire cup. The thing is, I mean, it was actually doable because it was, it's way less chaotic than current Mario Karts. There isn't as much shit flying about. You can defend yourself. You can, kind of, just if you
you could outrun the red shells.
If you race really well, you could just, it can be done. And I did do it, but good lord, it took so many attempts.
Is this the one where you can do the infinite snaking?
That's Mario Kart DS.
No, that's the DS.
Yeah, but it's a little bit idiosyncratic as the only other Mode 7 style Mario Kart, so it's a bit different from Mario Kart DS. Really, for me, is kind of where modern Mario Kart was kind of codified. Everything kind of traces back to that. Really, I think that's where they really started to nail down the handling and the way everything works. And so whenever I go back to any of the ones before that, whether it's Super Mario Kart, 64, Double Dash, this one, they feel weird, and they feel weird in their own weird ways, like from each other even.
They're all one-offs, right?
This one, like Super Circuit, I need to check like an online manual or something, because I don't know what you're supposed to do with the hop and the slide. It doesn't seem to have the boost mechanic that was introduced
I feel like
in
it's
64.
something in there, something to do with, do you have to, I forget now.
But this is like a time when Nintendo was like experimenting with different things, like in the F-Zero game, you had to tap the brakes as you were, so expect weird controls, weird things in some of these Game Boy Advance games.
Yep. The other two games that were announced are Mario Luigi Superstar Saga. That's the first of the Alpha Dream.
The only one on
And
GBA.
the best.
The only one on GBA. Yeah, what a game! Great game. For people who haven't played it, obviously there's a remake on 3DS, which I'm sure is very good, but obviously more expensive.
Rest in peace, Alpha Dream.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, the remakes are pretty much there going. We'll send them on their way, seemingly. It's a great game, and I have not played the original version. I've not even played the remake, but in a long time. But I can only imagine it's the sort of thing that holds up pretty well. To be honest, I don't know what wouldn't, except for maybe a few bosses that where like. Because it's so based on dodging boss attacks, like some of the more like prolonged bosses that you might get later in the game had some kind of nasty tricks up their sleeve, where like you might kind of die the first time because you just weren't sure exactly naturally what was coming. But generally speaking, it was just in terms of the length and the battle mechanics.
It was a 20 to 25 hour long RPG. It was pretty breezy.
Just like perfectly judged for a portable RPG.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like back then, anyway.
Yeah.
And then the last one was Minish Cap, which is also a very good game, which looks very nice on these images.
I really like Minish Cap, but
it's amazing.
It'd be interesting for me to see it now through
it's been a while.
Slightly different, because I hadn't even played Ages and Seasons back then. So when I first played Minish Cap, I've played them since. So it'd be kind of interesting to have all that kind of experience of even just other top-down Zelda since, how it kind of seems to be like maybe like how it built on those games, because obviously Flagship having made those games with Nintendo on GBC before they made Minish Cap. But of course, Minish Cap's kind of famous for being like overshadowed by the DS launch. It's like the first exclusive Zelda game, because they did the Link to the Past remake for GBA, of course, much like the Super Mario Advance games, but
which had new content.
Yeah, they had the Four Swords. That was the beginning of it. Was in that, but this was the first original Zelda game for the system, and it was the system was getting retired basically as it was happening. Because in America the DS launched like that November. And it didn't over here. So like we got Minish Cap and you got the DS, and then Minish Cap came out in America after the DS. So it's just so it just shows you the kind of weirdness and the nonsense of the third pillar stuff. It's just like, no, we are ending this generation early to save us from the PSP basically. And so I think this got less attention. Not only it got no attention, because obviously it did, but it got less attention than it probably deserved. But I would have to go back to it to really kind of feel how robustly it kind of holds up today.
I'm just going to rocket through the other games they've announced so we can kind of talk about the whole offering. The games coming in the future: Metroid Prime Fusion, Kirby the Amazing Mirror, Fire Emblem, the original GBA Fire Emblem, F-Zero Maximum Velocity, and Golden Sun. Presumably that means Golden Sun 2 is coming at some point, but it'd be really funny if it never did.
One would hope.
It'd be really funny if they're just like, no, we gave you the first one.
One thing I've over the years I've considered, but have been put off by high prices for getting a Japanese copy of Metroid Fusion, because it has a hard mode that is not in the Western.
Weird.
So I will be able to play that presumably through the Japanese app. And also, hopefully, like Maximum Velocity is the launch day F-Zero that I had with my GBA, but hopefully eventually they'll put that Japan exclusive one on the Japanese app, and maybe as an import, like even in the non-Japanese apps, because that is the one F-Zero game I have not played. There is still one, and that's it. It came out in 2005, I think, and yeah, like that's the most recent F-Zero game, and it's the one I haven't played. So hopefully they'll get to that eventually.
So I guess at a high level we could talk about the Game Boy being in the regular and the Game Boy Advance being in the premium is an interesting tactic. I get it ultimately, but it feels like 7 years into the Switch's system. If you're going to launch this thing now, 5 years into the paid service, it feels like GBA is the least they could do for people who are paying for the regular service. And
it's so belated, it's ridiculous. We've talked about it many times over the years, but just to restate, I mean, the biggest thing for me is if one of the big, you're trying to tie it into, like, you pay to play online. That is why you pay for the service, right? You want to play Splatoon, you want to play Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, whatever it is, right? You pay for that. Here's some old games as well with online in them, right? So, like you're tying it together. And like the portable games are the best vehicle for that, because you don't have the weirdness of, it's like GoldenEye, well, it's online, but it's split screen because, it's emulating the original game when it's taking it online. We don't have that with the portable games because everyone had their own system and they had to have a link cable or whatever. So that's better. And also it's just like, probably fewer people got to play these multiplayer originally because of the hardware requirements to have, multiple systems, link cables, multiple copies of the game oftentimes.
Right.
Like, it was always so much more of you could tell us, like, you could play these classic portable games on this bit of portable Nintendo hardware online, like, an experience multiplayer, like maybe, it's something you enjoy doing in the past and you're doing it again, but also, actually maybe you get to experience these things as never before almost, and it just didn't do it for this long. It's crazy. It's absolutely mad that it's taking this long.
It doesn't make any sense. And, a lot of the Game Boy stuff, I mean, I never owned a Game Boy, so this stuff's pretty cool for me. But yeah, like the kind of proximity-based multiplayer that the Game Boy enforced, it's like, I mean, I haven't played most of these games, let alone played the multiplayer. It's just unheard of.
Now, there's got to be some really cool stuff I could think, that would be good to go back to, especially like GBA, which I had a little bit of a chance to do some multiplayer with in the early going when I was still at school. But, early days, played a fair bit of Mario Kart and stuff, but like, there's got to be a bunch of games there that I think would be really, really fun. And it's just, you don't have that awkwardness that you have with like N64, Super Nintendo. So it just, I'm genuinely puzzled as to why it took this long. Why, I guess, they just prioritized the console stuff more because they think it has like greater mind share with people, more lasting memories. But, I'm surprised, we often think of Nintendo as being like, quite Japan-centric, maybe even more than they should be from a strictly business sense. And you would think with how completely portable dominated the Japanese market is that it would have dictated this being done earlier. But just, so I suppose we'd just be grateful it's here. We made it.
Yeah, I would just think at this point, like, maybe throw more of a bone to your baseline subscribers, but
they certainly could have done. I don't know. I wouldn't argue with that.
I still feel like unless you're an active Mario Kart player, or active player of Animal Crossing, I don't know how much the expansion pack gives, but I get why they felt like they had to throw something else in. So the GBA stuff. I mean, I get it. It's just like it feels like they owe both those audiences more than they're giving here. Like, this is a belated attempt at a catch up, but it's not it's not a full catch up.
Yeah,
Well,
this feels like
it's-
so they can say that they've added something.
Yeah,
Right.
you got to keep doing that, and also, I mean, especially when at this stage of the game, I guess we do have to think about, and this is where maybe being so slow with it might work for them. There could be a slowdown of, kind of new, well, obviously we already had like some slow periods because of the pandemic and stuff, but, if you, like we said, entering the 7th year of the system, you have to think it's, the new games at some point are going to drop off, because there will be diverting efforts in software development to a successor platform. And so these sorts of things are things you could do to say, oh no, don't let your subscription lapse, stick
Right.
with it, and kind of make it feel like it's still kind of vibrant. So maybe being so slow with it, will work for them in that sense, but also you probably left a lot of money on the table from earlier on in the system's life.
Yeah.
That'd be my
Absolutely
guess.
I would think that all of these apps would just carry over to the next system. It would feel
no.
weird. It would feel
You
weird
would
for
hope.
me.
You would hope
Well,
so,
yeah,
but
I mean,
you
just
can't
because it would
take...
feel weird for me, weird to me for them to just say we put all this development time into making, a separate Super NES app, a separate
Nintendo making things feel weird never.
Well, yeah. But I would just think that it's part of their platform, and it's like, oh, you just download those apps on the new system.
I definitely agree with you, John. I guess you just can't take anything like this for granted with Nintendo. But I mean,
no.
don't forget, this is a successful system, and this is a unified system. It's not like, oh, well, we've got our console, we've got our portable, and it's 2 different architectures and 2 different like hardware teams that made it, so like operating systems and all that. Like they've had one system that's been really, really damn successful. It just passed the Game Boy family. The DS is the only thing standing in its way. It's on the threshold of selling 1 billion units of software. It is ridiculously successful. So, yeah, you would think that, some degree of continuity to try and capitalize on that success for their next platform would be, very much in the cards. But we'll have to wait and see. We must remember they haven't had a successful follow-up to a successful system in quite some time. Every time they've had like a really big system like Wii, it's either all gone wrong with Wii U, or like from DS to 3DS, it didn't quite all go wrong, but it was going pretty wrong at one point before they kind of pulled it out of the fire into a, lesser success than DS was, but still a significant success.
All right, we need to make up some time because we're taking a long time. So I'm gonna skip the next thing up, and we'll come back to it. I'm gonna go through some stuff that's not super important. We got an extended trailer of Master Detective Archive Rain Code, which I believe this is the game we already knew about, but we got to see some gameplay. It looks cool. Does anybody have anything they want to say about it? I think it looks cool is probably sufficient for now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. This was a surprise. Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 Remastered was real. Which is wild. We don't know a ton about it right now. We do know they didn't mention Xenoblade at all, which is interesting, or Monolith at all, which is interesting. This is a Bandai Namco published affair. Greg, you said that you read somewhere that it's Japanese voices.
Yes, I've not been able to follow that up and absolutely get rock solid confirmation, but the impression that I got was
that no voice acting in the. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was just that. Yeah, it was Japanese voices only, which while obviously many other languages supported for the subtitles, but it would seem, because both games had English voice acting originally, that perhaps some kind of additional cost or, goodness knows what, I don't know, maybe they lost the recordings, something where it made it either impractical or impossible or something for them to actually include the English voice tracks that were originally there in this version. Not that unheard of with these sorts of things. I mean, didn't they have to completely redo the English voice tracks for Silent Hill games when they brought those back
something like that, yeah.
in HD and stuff, like rights lapse, or they don't even sometimes because it depends how assiduously all this work was done, back then, like in terms of like, well, what would we have to pay, or, like, and they may just think, oh, it's just safer to just forget it. And, with this sort of thing, the audience that it's going for, Baten Kaitos collection, they're perfectly willing to just go with the Japanese voices anyway.
I guess. I think if that is what... So the reason we have to go on this right now is that the trailer in the Japanese Nintendo Direct showed, or heard, you could hear the Japanese voice actors. In the English language Nintendo Direct, they talk over it, so we don't get to hear any of the voices.
Right.
So that's interesting. I will say that while we made fun, we got the email specifically calling out the bad voice acting in the first Baten Kaitos game, and it is bad, but I appreciate it. The second Baten Kaitos game only has 3 characters, and they actually have really good interplay, and the voice acting is actually really good. Especially, God, what's her name? The female lead in that game. I'm blanking on her name. She and the robot get a little jealous of each other for Sagi's attention, and she has some really excellent delivery. I mean, some really well done snarky bitch delivery that is just perfect. And it would be a shame if we lost that, because it's spot on. Their little feud with each other, while Sagi's just like, aren't we having fun with fun times together? And they're just absolutely dogging each other. It is some of the best stuff in that game. And because there's only 3 characters, they know the whole party is there at all times. So there's no problem having them just chat constantly about whatever. And usually it's like Sagi going, that's really weird, we should look into it. And then those two just absolutely ripping each other to shreds. Or being like, that's a great idea, Sagi. Don't you think so, Hag? And it's Sagi's like, yay, they agree with me, this is great. And then they're getting ready to have a fucking murder each other. It's beautiful. It's a great part of that game. Hopefully they preserve that. Fantasy Life is back, because apparently level 5 is back. And this is what we're dealing with. Level 5 came back during this direct. If you never played Fantasy Life, originally this was like teased in a Layton game on DS as London Life.
Yeah.
Then it was the full 3DS game, which was this weird like do whatever you want RPG where you could be things like a fisher and you just fish, or you could level up cutting down trees or making stuff. It was basically like just a do whatever the hell you want game, but there was a story. It was interesting, and it was kind of fun to play with. I don't know that I want to play with it now. You could do stuff to change the world and all kinds of interesting things. And like I said, there was a plot line. It sounds like they're doing the same thing here, although it looks obviously a hell of a lot better on Switch. The game looks really nice in the level 5 sort of art style. But there was the sequel to that game was on phones. I think it did really, 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 really exorbitantly poorly. Like comedically poorly.
Luxuriously poorly.
Yeah, and then that franchise just fucking died. But it's back in Fantasy Life. All right, so the name is Fantasy Life I, as in the letter I, lowercase. The Girl Who Steals Time, which is an incredibly stupid name. But it's come out in 2023. I don't know. Anybody here interested in this thing? I'm vaguely interested.
The original game kind of passed me by, even though I had some interest based on, kind of, like you said, really go back to that Layton connection and stuff. But yeah. I know there's people that really like that, and you got some.
I played it and talked about it on the show.
Quite strong reviews and all that. So it was something I considered, but never got around to. So I don't have the direct kind of impetus to check this one out, but I get you. It's really competitive now on Switch for kind of any kind of RPG style of game. So
it's a weird slice of life thing too, and there's a number of those.
Sure, yeah. So it's kind of crowded. Might be difficult to envision a sort of plausible pathway for it to find its way in my lap, as it were. But we'll see.
Yeah, in terms of like standing out from all those other games, it doesn't have farming, so that's one. But the sheer number of jobs you can take on, and you just level them up by doing them. Like you level up being a lumberjack by cutting down trees, and how effective you are at that increases for use. Is a neat touch, and it's a fun thing to do. It's kind of MMO-ish in that way. I had fun with that game. I played it with one or two other people online, so we'd interact with each other and we would trade things. But it was fun. It was the London Life one was pretty fun. Speaking of transition, Layton is back in Layton form.
Yeah, it was just like a little addendum, like a little coda to the Fantasy Life thing, wasn't it? It was just like, oh yeah, if you remember Level 5 as the guys that made well, Layton is back. He's here.
Yeah, it's like a slow pan in on a guy in a top hat, and then he finally turns around as wrapped in what looks like fog, but actually it's steam because it's Professor Layton and the new world of steam.
Yeah, there was some of it, didn't it, when it left off at the end of the third game, which is chronologically the last game.
The last one. Yeah.
Like he was going off to America or something.
Yes.
So, like, that kind of makes sense, I guess.
Luke couldn't come with him, basically.
Yes. No, we didn't see Luke, did we? We just saw Layton here, just the back of his hat.
A new mystery will begin. So we have a new Layton game. Hopefully the puzzles don't suck because, of course, the guy who made the puzzles for the Layton games is dead. And the puzzles in Catriel are shit garbage. But that's not the only thing that's garbage about those games. What else is garbage about those games is those games. So, hey, maybe this one will be good. This weird level 5, well, I'm going to call this the level 5 possible renaissance.
Yes, attempted renaissance. We can't really say it is one yet.
Yeah, we need to see the receipts, as it were.
Would be renaissance.
Yeah. Excitement, though. Layton is back. Speaking of also back, Mario Kart 8. Wave 4 DLC. It's out.
No, it's not out yet. It's this spring.
It's not?
It's just said spring. Yeah, it's coming. First of all, they showed a new track, which is Yoshi's Island theme, which is there's plenty of Yoshi's related tracks, but not one that's explicitly from that game. It's got level elements referencing that game, and of course, the Mario Kart 8 treatment of Yoshi's Island music, specifically the kind of athletic theme from Yoshi's Island. So that's nice, but also a new character, which they hadn't really sort of thought that was part of the booster course pass before,
right.
Because
also I'm pretty sure that they were riding a new motorcycle, maybe some new
parts,
some new vehicle parts.
Yeah, because there hadn't been no parts, no characters before this. So you just kind of thought, well, it's called Booster Course Pass, it's just courses, right? But no, they had a new character.
We had speculated about this too at the time. We're like, are they ever going to add new characters and stuff? And I think we had concluded, seems like no.
They have plenty of characters, especially when they're not particularly impactful on the game. You got your Mii in various costumes if you want, if you had Amiibo, I think anyway. You've got a few crossover things like Animal Crossing and Zelda. You've got, all the Koopa kids. You got to the point where they just, screw it, put Pink Gold Peach in there. You just think, well, what's left? But for a start, Birdo, they hadn't used Birdo before, so you can have Birdo now.
Nice.
I did like one thing about the Yoshi track, in that it looked like if you went through one of those clouds with a question mark on it, that created this bridge.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's like they put a little bit of Excite Truck in my Mario Kart, in a way.
It's specifically in Yoshi's Island where it creates those sort of broken red line platforms. It's making one of those, and it's got the sound effect and everything like that. It seems pretty cool.
We hit at this point, we're in the sizzle reel. I'm not going to go through everything in the sizzle reel. I did want to center in on one because it's my new business. For whatever reason, Konami decided to bring WBSC eBASEBALL Power Pros to fucking North America. This game, so when it went to the eShop, it was
7 weeks till opening day.
Yeah, when it went to the eShop, that was the first thing a lot of the sickos in the NWR Discord went to look for, present company included. Because we couldn't believe they were bringing Power Pros baseball, eBASEBALL, as they call it.
Just like Pro Evo became eFootball.
Yeah, to North America. So Danny Bivens on the Famicast plays these games for some reason.
Madman. That's why.
Yeah, he needs help.
Well, because Konami also, because obviously this is Power Pros with the super deformed style and all that,
Yes.
but don't they make a game based on the Japanese baseball league that is, like more of a simulation?
But this is not that game.
Yeah, no, this is very
game.
much not that game. But,
So-
but isn't that also eBaseball as well? Like, do they
Sure,
have
why not?
I think they have the same eBaseball branding for both games, even though they look very different, and I assume have quite different gameplay as well.
So I then we all saw this game was 99 cents or like $1.10 in Canada. Or 100 yen in Japan, and we thought, that's gotta be a pricing mistake, right? There's no way they released a game for 99 cents. There's no way Konami released a game for 99 cents.
Normally it has to be Contra Rogue Core and it has to bomb before it's 99 cents, yes.
Right, like 99 cents is the action of those publishers who take Unity asset packs. This is madness. So, like, we all bought it because we all had more than enough gold points just to buy it because we're like, this price is obviously a mistake. Let's just grab it now and then see what this thing is. Maybe that was their tactic because this game is garbage, but it's like the most amazing garbage. It's, I'm going to steal from GX, frequent writer to the show, who described this. So I was in the Discord. I tweeted images of this. I'll put this one in the chat because I think it's particularly germane to what I'm about to talk about. I was live tweeting my play session with this game. It is an online game. It launched while the online was in maintenance mode, which is good. That's when you should launch your online focused game. My comment when I saw this was one of two things. One, that's a lot of text to tell you that your name of your online character could be posted to Discord or Twitter. But two, this is the most default ass Japanese English text font in the world. This is the font that like visual novels and dating sims made by one guy use because it's the default font package.
Yeah, it looks like
RPG
the default
Maker.
system. Yeah, exactly. It looks like a default system font.
Yeah, the kerning is amazing, which if you're not familiar with kerning, it's a space between letters. It's like incredibly wide. It's so bizarre. The art, like the character art is garbo, like just absolute trash. But I'm going to post in the chat because I had a like visceral response to this. This is the thing they ask you to enter your name in. This text input screen. It's bad.
Wow.
All those blank spaces, they don't do anything. They look like they do something. It puts a blank space in the screen, but it doesn't actually put a space in the final result because I couldn't figure out how you would do lowercase letters in this font entry system. So I went James blank space all, and then I scrolled down and there was an up arrow because it was my name in all upper caps. Because I couldn't find lowercase. Apparently it's row 7 out of 7 is the lowercase characters. We have all the fucking wingdings fonts between there and here.
I'm just trying to figure out if inputted is actually a word.
It is.
It's
It's not a
real
word you
weird.
normally use.
No, it's really
but,
weird.
So that was cool. I like there's a button that just says backspace, but it's not in the text entry field. It's over in the text type selection if you want to enter in kanji, katakana, alphanumeric, kanji. It's like, why is backspace a button over there? Why is it not in the text entry? Oh god, this game. Everything about this game is jank and stupid and awful. And just, you should go play this game because it gives you so much more appreciation for what a real video game is. Because this is not one. This is like a scam, but they're not charging you enough money to actually make money on it. It's not good enough to be frustratingly bad. Like, it's just funny. It's just consistently funny. The gameplay is garbage. I can't hit the ball. But the guy I'm playing against is throwing fire pitches that come out at 172 kilometers an hour that you just can't hit. I can't figure out how he's doing that. I don't have fire pitches. We're supposed to be the same. We're both playing our first game. How does he have better characters than me? I don't understand. Also, it auto-generates if you want to play if you want to play single player and do like a bunch of games against AI, you have to create the AI teams, which is a lot of fun. Thanks for that. I really want to have to create all the characters on a bunch of baseball teams. That sounds fun. If you auto-generate your party, your team, it asks you where you want your team to be from, and it lets you pick a country or some dependencies that field teams internationally. And then it generates a team. So it'd be like, so my team is an American team. They play under a U.S. flag. And every single name it generates is a Japanese first and surname. All of them. No matter what country you pick. It's amazing. They couldn't be fucking bothered to add non-Japanese names to the name pool. This game is amazing. I mean, this game is legitimately, like, I want to make sure you understand. You can be amazed by something that's bad.
Oh, yeah.
That is what this game is. What an accomplishment. I appreciate this game for what it isn't.
And consider the pre-order for the show cancelled.
Yeah, done. Yeah. What this game isn't is a functional game, and I appreciate it for that. Alright, so that gets us through all of the whatever the shit this was. That leaves 2 titles left. We have, so let's go through it. It's real, y'all. It finally is happening, and in fact, it finally came out. Metroid Prime 1 remake, or remaster. It's not a remake. It was announced and shadow dropped.
Yeah, actually, sort of late for the 20th anniversary in America and a little early for a European one because I think it was March in 2003 that Metroid Prime came out back there.
They're just finding the middle ground.
I think the physical version might be right on it.
Yeah,
this is I'm sure I was meticulously
later.
planned, all about that. Oh, you've got to get the European date.
So yeah, I mean, have any of y'all started playing it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I have. Yep.
Okay. Do you want to give some thoughts?
It's good. I mean, I like it. It's it's funny. This game really does give me all the feels. Just because
is it a significant game?
I would say yes, it is a significant game.
Okay,
I think
remember, when we're talking about games now, we have to say at the very beginning if it's significant or not.
I apologize, I forgot. Yes,
Super Mario Land 2, not significant.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go in
eBASEBALL extremely significant,
going in
but
with
for
the
reasons I don't
Sharktacons,
understand.
Worthless.
Significance confirmed here. I can confirm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. It's been so long since I played the original game. I can't really tell you how much better it looks. It looks good.
So there's some videos out, and it's more than just like, oh, we up-res some textures. There's new level geometry. There's new, there's new shapes. There's new like meshes. There's new effects. This is a fairly significant graphical, like almost to the point of they may have basically redone the visuals of this game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It looks good. I mean, I can tell you that. I mean, and this comes from me just coming off. I did actually play through Dead Space and beat it.
Oh, did you get through your blockage?
That's a whole story. I'll tell that story next week.
Okay.
But yeah, and that's me coming off of that game, which it looks fantastic. And this game, definitely does not disappoint. I'm not sitting here saying, this looks like a GameCube game. It looks terrible. It looks really good. Controls really well. Very intuitive controls, I found. A little bit weird switching between the scan visor and going back to your beam.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of control schemes, isn't there? They gave quite a few. You've got like a dual stick, kind of trying to just go to that standard, which of course famously it didn't use at the time. You've got pretty much just what they did at the time, with the single stick and the lock on. You've got something approximating at least the Wii remote style with gyro. For that kind of the pointer control scheme. And then the one I've tried is referred to as hybrid. So it's basically the original control scheme, but instead of kind of when you could kind of like stop and aim just like with the stick, here you could stop and aim with gyro. and also as an option enable the lock-on free aim, sort of Prime 3 style, but again with gyro, so actually kind of more accurately like the way lock-on free aim worked in Metroid Prime Federation Force, funnily enough. It works fine for me, kind of emulating mostly the original control scheme, because that's what the game's designed around. A lot of the kind of targeting of just like, just keep locking on, keep snapping from one target to the next, rather than like actually having to do like super precise aiming. That's the way everything, whereas like Prime 3, where they had that control scheme in mind for the whole game, it was designed around pointer aiming. Whereas like when they took it, for Prime Trilogy, put it back into the first two games, it was nice in certain, encounters especially and stuff, and it worked really well for first person games in general. I think the Wii Remote and Nunchuck for me, but it wasn't like essential. So the way I've been doing it, I think works, pretty well, especially, for portable play. And obviously it tries to be super immersive. That was its thing back in the day with the, through the visor, all the effects and, the music and the sound design, all that was going for full immersion. But in terms of the nature of the game, it's really well suited to portable play. That kind of slower pace and, kind of plodding around everywhere. Like, it probably goes down easier for me as a portable game today, than it would do if I had to, just put it in front of the TV. But, you are inevitably sacrificing on the immersion factor there.
Yeah, it always entertains me how many things, like, you play Metroid Prime now, and it feels remarkably modern, simply because so many first-person shooters cribbed so many elements off of it. This game doesn't really feel like it came out in 2001. It doesn't feel like there's so many games out that I could probably look at in 2001 that I could say, feels like it's from that era. But just stuff like the 3D rotatable map, like that's something that I don't think really had been in any games prior to that. The whole scanning for lore. The
HUD stuff, building it into the visor and all that. That stuff now, in first-person shooters, that stuff, of course you have that kind of map. Of course you can scan a bunch of stuff for lore. But that was in 2001. Something like BioShock, for instance. That came out in, 2007, I think? Right about then, I forget exactly. I didn't get it till the PS3, like, a couple of years later, but I think so.
Yeah, and so just stuff like that, where that's really where you started to see, I think, it probably really popularized kind of having snippets of things that you scan or listen to or whatever. They kind of
took it to the next stage of like, okay, well, what if they were audio logs, and so they could play, while you were walking around, rather than, like you have to stop and like page through the text or whatever. But it definitely felt like, even by the time I got to it a couple of years later, it felt like there was a continuity there, even though it's a Nintendo game and not that many people played it because the GameCube was not very popular, that it had this really significant influence on various things that came after it.
Mm-hmm. And I just played through the first area just before the podcast. Well, almost, because I was nice. I'm completely OCD scanning everything, and so of course at the end of a mild spoiler alert, but you have to escape in a time limit at the end of the first area. It's a countdown, which is very Metroid, but of course, I'm sitting there not even caring about the countdown, and I'm scanning everything, and I'm like, oh, whatever. And because I think I'm so used to games that just autosave or just take care of it for you. But of course, I ran out of time, I got killed, and then it says, start from your last save? I'm like, sure, I'd love to. It didn't save the game, and so now I have to start all over again. So make it to the end of that first area. That's my advice to you, just so it saves the game, because now I pretty much have to start from scratch and go through that whole thing again. Although I'm hoping that it saves all my scans. If it doesn't, well, here we are. I guess let's try it again. But the one thing I do think, Greg, you may be able to, just using your amazing powers of recollection,
I've played
The
through
one
it a
thing
few
that they-
times. I can say, well, not recently.
Well, the one
it's probably about
Yeah, but
12 years ago or something. But
Yeah, but I'm thinking that because now when you scan something, there's red scans and orange scans, and I'm thinking the red scans, are they the ones for your logbook?
No, not exclusively. The red scans, I think, are things that do things more in the environment. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so
Right, unlock a door.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
that makes
Whereas
sense.
the orange ones are more like it. Sometimes I think there might be red scans that do go to your logbook, but most of the time the orange scans, that's the thing. It's like it's kind of weird they don't have a different color because some orange scans are just like, okay, here's a bit of flavor text, but others are, oh no, this is flavor text that goes in the logbook. Like this is a creature or, a device or something that you've not seen before. But yeah, I think like there's lore scans that are red as well. So I don't really know why, like, some lore scans are red, but then otherwise, like, switches are red as well. Weird, but I can only assume it's faithfully recreate. That was how I remember there being orange and red back in the day, but not the most, like, clean sort of demarcation there.
Yeah, because I remember the first time I played through this on GameCube, I think I had 99% of the scans.
Oh, I got really agonizingly close on some of those games.
Yeah.
I think the only time I've ever got 100% of any Metroid Prime game with the scans was Metroid Prime 2 on Trilogy. Like, I had literally one scan that I didn't have at the end of the play. There's, oh, fuck it. I'll find out what it is and I'll get it.
Yeah, I think the one that I missed, because with the final boss, you have to do multiple scans for each of his
You do
phases.
get that with bosses. You get like, oh, there's different phases of the boss, or like, oh, I think it might be in Prime 2. Or one of them, like, there's a bit where you could glimpse the boss before you actually fight it. It's like crawling around in a kind of narrow passageway or something, and if you have to scan it before you fight it, and that's a different scan, and that's like a logbook entry. Like, they definitely were like leading into the like drive people's compulsive tendencies into madness.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying it, and so it's funny. It's actually good timing. I was looking for what to follow up Dead Space with, and I was like, I don't know.
A game that Dead Space probably borrows from.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah,
There's definitely some
completely.
of that like diegetic, like HUD, kind of stuff. And that, it's more like, obviously because it's a third person shooter, Dead Space is like very much following off Resident Evil 4. But, some of the way the sort of in-game information is presented and trying to make it feel like it's coming from inside the world rather than just, an artificial, consumer thing, definitely feels informed by Prime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, we can do some new business on that next week.
I definitely need to play more of it, but the lighting is the thing that hits me the most. It just seems way more natural and kind of atmospheric.
Let's close it out the way Nintendo did then. We got another trailer for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We did not get Metroid Prime 4. Tears of the Kingdom.
I wasn't
like
really
your
expecting
taste of Metroid, peasants.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting like. I mean, it was just. We've again the theme.
I want another trailer that's just a number. That's all I want.
The theme of it being belated but sudden. That was very much this. We've been expecting, something Metroid Prime to kind of. Oh God. I almost went to a particular phrase. To lay the groundwork for there being a Prime 4 in the future, because the series has been so absent for so many years. So we've been expecting it for ages, and then it's actually taken way longer. Like, so we've blown past all these anniversaries, and we've had Metroid fucking Dread come back to life in the interim, but there it's like, oh no, it's here. So it was so sudden, I wasn't expecting like a Prime 4 thing to come up this time, because that feels like it's far off.
I just have to give the standard. This space will not be marked of no Silk Song, no Prime 4 on your bingo
Silk
cards.
Song, yeah. I would be interested to see more on that. I enjoyed
the unmarkable bingo spaces. But yeah, so they gave us a breath they gave us a Tears of the Kingdom trailer. The date has not moved. It is not going to miss its target. We did find out because of an eShop listing, this game will be $70 instead of the Nintendo 60. But you can use the new vouchers, which just relaunched.
It basically actually just brings it more into parity with the situation in other countries. So,
right.
Breath of the Wild was a premium. Now, I had it physically, I got it with my sister, as many people did, or in some cases they had just the game, in the very early going. So I didn't buy it digitally, but since, you can see on the eShop, it's more expensive than pretty much any other Nintendo game. Breath of the Wild on the European, UK eShop. And certainly in Japan, they have quite a lot of variable pricing where anything that's like akin to an RPG carries a premium compared to, kind of, like a Mario game or something. So it's like probably, I don't know, I think both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are something like maybe 1,300 yen extra than, a Mario game. So but then I think there's some like RPG, like maybe Xenoblade is like even more expensive than that. Funnily enough, like that's kind of weird in that case, but yeah, basically this is something they've resisted in America, I guess, because they just feel like, there's a greater sensitivity around, variable pricing. But, they did, surely not coincidentally, reintroduce the voucher program to North America for the first time in quite some time, I believe. Like, it's been running the whole time in UK, Europe, more widely in Japan, but now it's back in the US. So it's like, oh, well, you can have it for, balancing out, much less per unit if you get a pair of vouchers to entitle you to 2 first-party games.
Yeah, so with that, ultimately, I won't end up paying more than I would have anyway, which I know is everybody's concern. What's James going to have to pay for this game? So,
yes.
So everything's fine. Don't worry. My home will be safe. But yeah, we didn't get a lot in this trailer. It was kind of like, no, the game's still coming, but there's an undeniable Banjo-Kazooie nuts and boltsness about this entire thing.
I kind of felt like just like taking that whole thing of like, I don't know, it was something that was more like emergent gameplay from the last one, where it's like, oh, we strung this thing together with like octo balloons and, bits of driftwood or whatever. And it's like, how about if we like really made that a thing? Like people cobbling platforms to get, it seemed like we had like something for the ground, something for the air. Like this it seems like a significant component of the game.
And they all look like they're made out of junk. And this is what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild too. Like they gave us little hints of what the gameplay mechanics would be and stuff, but they didn't say it. And even here, they don't say, "Oh, you can assemble vehicles out of junk." But there is a lot of like, there's the things that he's riding on have a very, and we actually saw him riding on the aerial thing in the very first real gameplay trailer of this game. But I didn't give it much thought. I thought it's just a platform that he landed on. But no, they've done a few other things now in this trailer. His little car thing that very much has a nuts and bolts vibe to it. And in retrospect, the manipulation tool looks not that dissimilar from how the Mumbo wrench worked.
The Mumbo wrench, jeez.
It's a wrench with his face on it. How it worked in that game with a big lightning bolt that lets you move the piece around. So, I mean, I don't know. They didn't show any of that part. They just showed him on the vehicle. Like, that doesn't necessarily imply
it's
that
what it looks
stuff.
like. It looks like it's cobbled together junk. And like, especially when you consider the things that people like, the weird, like, launching a mine cart with the stasis and turning that into some sort of, half a vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
And I said the balloons and all that. It just feels like maybe they looked at what people did with the systems in the first game when it wasn't really built for that and thought, we could build things for that, like we could, and it seems to tie into this whole Link and his weird mechanical techno arm, and his ability to, it's like make some green magic comes out or something that seems to like power these things. Like it's another Sheikah Slate type ability. Like it's the inferences you can draw, but yeah, they're not spelling anything out yet. We got 3 months to go. You would
find out soon.
Think it's locked in now. It really felt like between the earnings report and the likely direct afterwards, it's like this is probably the last chance for this to move. And with the earnings report kind of nailing it down for May, you kind of felt like it's pretty safe.
We're probably about 6 weeks out from the direct just focused on this game.
It'd be a blowout, no doubt.
And they'll definitely be hosting press events, I would guess, in New York and LA or San Fran, or maybe in Seattle. And of course usually they do them in like the Netherlands or and maybe London. Like Europe's kind of weird where they do them. And then obviously they'll have some in Japan where members of the press will actually get to play this thing in a controlled setting and write impressions based on it. And have people to talk to there versus getting your review copy early and being told you can write impressions up to this. Those settings let you actually have a conversation with somebody about it. But they didn't give us a lot to talk about here, except that like they were very clearly, the focus of the trailer was just like, yep, Link's still toying around, but they very clearly were putting these very unusual looking cobbled together vehicles in front of the camera for us to notice them. Their intent was clearly for us to see this and go, what the fuck are those? Without saying it. But even Rare, their Twitter account got in on the act, tweeting a picture of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts and noting it's available on Rare Replay. And I think their quote was, "It's everyone's favorite Banjo game. Don't ask us to back that statement up or why we thought about this today." And that was the end of their post. And it's like, all right, calm down. That game's still bad. It's still a bad game. It's a fun toy, but not a good Banjo game. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to that because they didn't really give us much.
It's more of an affirmation of what's coming and presumably the really big blowout stuff to come. Somewhere like you said, 6 months is pretty much 6 weeks is pretty much equidistant. From kind of where we are. Now to when the game will actually launch, so it could be a good time for something like that, and just glimpses, some familiar stuff, returning giant boss type characters, but then some new stuff and a little bit of. It's funny because like Breath of the Wild still had voice acting, but it still kind of caught me off guard. Like it's a little bit. Oh yeah, that's right, voice acting. Yeah,
especially when it wasn't Zelda's voice.
Yeah, because she carried a lot of it in the first one. So that was kind of I do have to kind of think about that again. But no, just what can you say? It's been a long road, but hopefully and with that comes some really lofty expectations, to say the least. It's going to be hard to live up to both. Just the status and the memories that people have of the first game, and then just what all the years of expectation, have kind of built up in people's minds, but they wouldn't bet against them pulling it off.
And how do you replicate that novelty?
Yeah, that's the toughest part.
We also noticed some territory that was from the physical geography that was from the original game. So we are still in the same area, but obviously it's not the same geography because most of it's in the air. So people are like, it's got some stuff in there. It must be the entire same map. No, bro, they're in the air. It's obviously not. Calm down. So
did you guys notice any shrines or anything like that?
No.
I didn't see any or gameplay that it looks like maybe they're putting more of those like shrine elements into the world itself,
or they just didn't feel like showing them.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But one of the puzzles that we see him solve with, spinning a big plate, I can imagine that there's some ball on there that needs to be guided somewhere. But it seemed to be open air, so.
This is always one of those interesting things of select edited trailers. How much were they able to hide from us too?
Right. Yeah.
God, they're good at this with this game in particular. It's a shame that nobody could post about it while it was happening and share theories. Oh, the whole thing, the whole agenda blown up by Elon Musk's dumbest purchase, which is saying a lot because that man is dumb as hell. All right, I think
you're so banned from Twitter now, dude.
Do it. Fucking do it. Do it.
No,
Shadow banning.
Don't do it, Elon, because then that means I have to post the podcast on Twitter. Jesus, I can't do that.
You do.
I can only handle Mastodon. That's enough.
It's a big workload. He'll surprise us by making James his personal shopper. So all my dumb purchases will be routed through you now.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
You make a dumber purchase then. Okay. Congratulations. You now own pets.com. Have fun. All right, so I think we need to wrap up because we've gone way too long. And I promised Guillaume I'd try to get out under 3 hours, and I'm about to fail at that. So let's do this now. Let's get out. This was a big direct. It had a lot of content. So I apologize for letting us go a little bit longer than I planned to.
I mean, the editing is going to be is probably going to suffer, but
that's fine.
Whatever.
Like, this is one of the episodes where, with the exception of when we lost John's audio, you could probably just let it rip.
Well, especially since no one's going to hear this anyway.
God damn it! You're making jokes, but it really is emotionally upsetting me. Like, I've been trying really hard. Like, this is the only thing I'm thinking about if I'm not thinking about work. It's incredibly frustrating. So please tell your friends. You can still download it from the website. I don't care if they listen to the show or not. Just tell them. Download it from the website.
Just tell them you can track this on Mastodon.
No, you can't.
The link is in there.
Nobody's on Mastodon,
RFM
John.
podcast at Mastodon.social, people. Go there. Love it.
There's like 85 Mastodons, John.
Enjoy
you
the
only track us
Fediverse.
on one. The metaverse. Fuck off with that shit. All right. I'm going to end the show now because I need to go lie down because I'm thinking about the RSS feed again and I'm going to cry. Greg, what is our music to conclude the show this week?
Well, we had a request in just recently for a song from the aforementioned Kuru Kuru Kururin on the GBA portion of the expansion pack, Nintendo Switch Online, from Lemonade. It actually suggested 3 songs, and they've all got their sort of merits, I think, and it's very much that sort of GBA soundtrack where, I mean, it's few systems that had like the breadth of like types of sound of GBA in terms of, you had those games where it sounded very Game Boy Color adjacent because it actually had Game Boy Color hardware in it, and they used that for the music quite often. And quite famously, like in Harmony of Dissonance, the second GBA Castlevania game, where it kind of went for like an actually dissonant soundtrack, but with GBC hardware. And
was there harmony in it?
The results are interesting. Not altogether bad. I think it gets a bit too bagged on sometimes, but yeah, probably was a bit beyond it. And then like you get stuff like Aria of Sorrow sound a lot richer. You think of like Rhythm Heaven and stuff like where they were compressing audio. Like it was a wide variety. This is an early game and it does have more of that kind of Game Boy Color sound to, some of the instruments and stuff. But very, very nice work, I think. And I went with the Starland theme mainly because it just had more of that kind of closing quality that we're looking for.
Cool. All right. Well, if you have suggestions for the music, you can send it to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You can also send your questions, comments, and please God, just tell me you can hear this. Tell me you can hear my voice, because I'm going to cry myself to sleep thinking about an RSS feed, and that's a dark place to be. So on that, it's time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.